Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto heritage revealed in Bleach harem. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by SavageThor, link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Prologue. Naruto. Shinigami. Chapter 1. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto in any way, shape or form, sadly. He groaned, coming back into consciousness. He felt different now, though he figured that long-tongued snake freak had something to do with that. Looking around at his surroundings, he frowned. The place was a dump. It was dark, smelly, and had water that came up to his knees. On each side of him he could see doors lining the walls. He moved forward down the hall, wanting to know exactly where the hell he was. He wondered briefly if that grass genin brought him here or if the villagers had managed to catch him. He was not ignorant of the villagers' hatred of him. You see, Naruto had always been hated by everyone save a select few people. It wasn't until this year, however, that he found out why. You see, sealed within Naruto was the demon fox Kyuubi no Kitsune who attacked the village 12 years ago. The Yondaime Hokage, who was the village leader at the time, sealed Kyuubi into the baby Naruto as a means to defeat him and wished for Naruto to be seen as a hero. However, not all things worked out as planned. The people of the village all saw Naruto as the demon itself and tried to have him killed at birth. The Sandaime Hokage Sarutobi had seen this, however, and made a new S-class law. Basically what this law said was that the events of that night would not be revealed to anyone of the younger generation under the penalty of death. Well, this stopped the younger generation, including Naruto, from finding out. It didn't stop the adults from passing their hatred on to the younger generation. After a while, however, the adults found ways around the laws. Since Naruto couldn't be killed by the village, they did their best to make his life hell. He was forced to wear bright orange clothes that he knew could one day get him killed. Then there was the fact he wasn't allowed in majority of the stores, and the ones that did allow him entry overcharged him greatly. This, of course, was the very reason he hid behind that mask of his. This mask was perfect, hiding anything that could lead to either pain or death. He had at first considered removing it around his team, however, seeing how they treated him, he decided against it. In reality, he was smarter than he let on, though he had nothing on Shikamaru or Sakura. While they both had book smarts, he himself had street smarts, which is how he had survived before the Hokage had found him. After walking down the halls a bit, he stopped, seeing two different halls ahead. Glancing to the one to the left, he felt something primal, powerful, but with a familiar feel to it. Glancing to the right, he felt something here as well. This one was also powerful, but felt different, though. Nodding to himself, he moved down the right hallway. A few minutes of walking later, he came to the end of the hallway. In front of him stood a large door. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward and opened it. Once inside, the door closed right behind him, though he paid it no notice. Looking ahead of himself, the blonde saw he was in a chamber of some sort. After looking around for a moment, he saw something on the walls and immediately knew what it was. The large black markings covering the walls, ceiling and floor of the room were all part of a large seal. It was what was in the center of it that caught his attention, however, for it was the design of the exact seal that was on his stomach. He was amazed when, after a moment of wishful thinking where he wondered both where he was and what the seal did, that a stack of papers appeared in front of him. Seeing this, he grinned before sitting down and grabbing the papers. Chapter 2. Naruto had finished reading the papers for over an hour ago. He had found out he was actually inside his mind, and the reason the place looked like a dump was because of his own mental state. He'd also read up on the seal and its effects and was pleased, except for one problem. You see, the seal did everything Yondaime designed it to, however, he also found something unexpected. That being the presence of another seal called a suppression seal. This seal had apparently been sealing up or suppressing most of his own abilities. For example, he discovered his spiritual energy was all but sealed away. If you're wondering why that's a problem, well, that's because chakra is composed of both physical and spiritual energy, which is why chakra depletion can result in death. Anyway, he has more physical energy flowing than spiritual, and that basically unbalanced him, thus his horrible chakra control. Though that's not to say that his physical energy wasn't hindered as well, since it also was. He had found out that it was thus resulting in not only his short stature, but his lack of speed as well as strength. Though he'd seen it was also from overeating on ramen since he was small. He quickly shook himself from his thoughts. Now was not the time for this, as he still had to complete the second exam. Standing to his feet, he quickly decided he needed to fix these problems. Well, at least as many as he could from in here, though he'd be seeing the old man after this exam was over. Real world. Naruto Sakura was tired. She had been forced to drag both of her teammates through the forest by herself and set up some traps around them. Let's not forget she had to get Naruto down from off of that tree he was pinned to. She hated this stupid exam hell. The only reason she was even taking it was because she knew Sasuke wanted to take it and she thought it would make her look better in Sasuke's eyes if she took it. Now, however, she was wishing she hadn't. First, it was because they had to stay in this forest for 5 days, which meant she wouldn't get a bath or anything until they reached the tower. Then they were attacked by that guy Orochimaru or whatever his name was, and now this. She sighed quietly before settling into the tree she found and entering the hole. But teammate was officially freaked right now. They had just witnessed that red-headed Suna shinobi Gaara as he easily killed a team of aimnin. All of them with the exception of Shino were shaking with fear. Though you could tell Shino was afraid by his rigid posture. They had been told that people would be killed in this part of the exam and had expected it. What they hadn't expected was to see something like that. Once the Sunanin had gone they each stood and after nodding to each other, agreed not to cross paths with the Suna genin. But Team 7. Sakura sighed watching her teammates. Sasuke was still doing bad twitching every few minutes, along with the fever he now had. Naruto however appeared to be doing better, now his pulse had calmed and his breathing was normal again. Hopefully both of them would be okay soon so they could get out of there. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto wandered through the halls of his mind lost in thought. He had just finished examining the condition of his body and didn't like what he saw. Apparently due to the lack of Reiki, spirit energy, he'd had all his life, he'd been constantly getting a small amount of Kyuubi's chakra daily. Problem is that demons didn't have Reiki, they instead had Yauki. Though he wasn't getting enough to do damage to him he was still getting it. However now that he'd been cut off from Kyuubi by the Hibi team he hasn't thus making him weaker. Because of this he was now wandering well not really wandering just letting his instincts guide him. Anyway that's besides the point he was still heading towards the fur bowl regardless. Once he arrived however he frowned heavily. All that was visible of the fox were his eyes while the rest of his body was behind a wall. Naruto stared in the fox's eyes for a moment before glancing at the wall, with his frown deepening, before looking back towards the fox once more and walking away. Kyuubi was shocked with the boy. Kyuubi had watched the boy since the fox's awakening in Wave. After which the fox had checked the boy's memory to see what he was about. Honestly the Biju had little respect for its vessel, simply because he was hiding from those measly flesh rats. However seeing the boy walk in its domain and lock eyes with it without flinching had changed that if only a bit. The fox could see his intentions through the boy's eyes and knew it wouldn't be long until this extra seal is released. Thinking that put a smirk on the fox's face hopefully the boy would keep impressing it. Real world. Sakura was in deep trouble right now. She had stayed up all night watching over her teammates. Well actually she had stayed up most of the night but had fallen asleep somehow. Anyway she woke noticing that it was already daybreak it was then she heard the bushes shaking behind her. She tensed before grabbing a kunai holding it in a defensive position unknowingly shaking the whole time. Slowly she turned her head behind her only to find a squirrel eating a peanut. Soon however the squirrel started running closer to her. Sakura however was quick to throw a kunai at it stopping it in its tracks before it turned tail and ran the opposite direction. So she noticed the explosive note on its back spoke the spiky black-haired Oto genin who was hiding in the bushes. No. That's not it at all spoke the other male Oto genin. This one was hunched over and resembled a mummy with the way his face was bandaged up. Huh? What do you mean asked the first. Well probably find out when we get closer spoke the second. So let's get going. Sakura however was once again in a battle with her body, trying to fight the sleep she knew she needed. She was interrupted however when a voice spoke up behind her. Keeping guard all night. Hearing this she quickly whipped her head around finding the Oto genin behind her. But it's no longer necessary spoke the bandaged up genin who was obviously the leader. Wake up Sasuke-kun. We want to fight him he finished. What are you talking about? What do you want? Called the pink-haired genin standing to her feet. I know someone named Orochimaru pulling the strings from the shadows, continued the girl making all the sound in recoil in shock. Furthermore what is that weird mark on Sasuke-kun's neck? You did this to Sasuke-kun and now you want to fight. Finished the girl ending her rant. I wonder what that man is thinking said the mummy-looking genin. But hearing that, we can't let you go spoke the spiky-haired genin. I'll kill this girl and also that Sasuke guy too. But that said he stood from his perch on the rock ready to end this. He however was interrupted when the mummy-like genin spoke again. Wait Zaku, what is it said Zaku. The mummy genin walked forward a bit before stopping and speaking again. You're not very good. Recently turned over dirt that's a different color. Grass doesn't grow here Sakura narrowed her eyes hearing this before the boy started speaking again. The bobby trap is pointless when noticed finished the genin while moving the grass. The stupid said Zaku with a smirk. So that kunai was to prevent the squirrel from setting up the trap. Fill her spoke the bandaged up genin. But that said all three Otonin jumped into the air. Sakura saw this and smirked before taking her kunai and cutting a wire next to her. The Otonin looked up seeing part of a tree come swinging at them. The trap from above thought the bandaged up genin before sticking his hand out and catching the tree piece before blowing it to pieces. Too easy he said. Sakura saw this and was surprised. She however didn't have time to stay that way seeing the nin coming towards her. Frankly speaking, you have no talent. People like you have to work harder, said the bandaged one still in midair. Konoha Senpu, spinning leaf whirlwind, called a voice before all three sound genin were kicked away by a green blur. Said blur turned out to be none other than Rock Lee, who landed right in front of Sakura in his ready stance and a squirrel on his shoulder. "You guys should also work harder," spoke Lee. "Who the hell are you?" said the bandaged genin. "Konoha's green beast Rock Lee," was the response to that question. "Why are you here?" asked Sakura quietly. "I'll always appear when you're in a pinch," was Lee's quiet response before he sat the squirrel down. "And its amazing bushy brows actually said a sentence quietly and without the word youthful. "There is a god. But right now I'm an enemy to you," said Sakura. "I told you before," said Lee, catching her attention, "that I will protect until I die." Once that was said, the mummy tossed his team scroll to Zaku before telling him to take care of Sasuke while he killed the other two. "From what I can tell, Sakura is in no condition to fight," thought Lee. "That kid is advanced into jutsu," thought the mummy while pulling up his sleeve revealing the device on his arm. "This will be pretty fun." But that thought he launched forward. Sakura, seeing this, launched a kunai at him while Lee hit the ground. When he came up, he pulled up a large triad, which had a hole blown in it a moment later. "There's some trick to your attacks, right?" spoke Lee. "I'm not going to just simply dodge it. Since I've seen your attacks before," finished the spandex wearing genin. "But with 3 against 1 I'm at a big disadvantage," thought Lee. "I'll have to risk it to crush each at full power." Chapter 3. And hey guys, just had to let you guys know that I'm going to be showing the real Naruto. Meaning his mask will come down. I'll simply start it off slow. With Team 10. They were currently in a clearing talking while Ino was complaining. They had had a brief run-in with Hyuga Niji, last year's #1 rookie. He had dismissed them though simply because they were too weak for him to even bother with. After that they had spent some time searching for a weak team. Of course Shikamaru had known full well they were most likely the weakest team in the exam. This is what has led us to the point we're at now. She and Shika soon had their conversation interrupted by Choji, who had spoken up. "Sasuke is knocked out cold," spoke the big bone boy. This of course earned the attention of his teammates, especially Ino, who is a big-time Sasuke fangirl. "Excuse me," Ino said. "Sasuke is knocked out and Sakura is fighting," spoke Choji, who watching things from his spot in a tree while enjoying a bag of chips. Hearing that, both Ino and Shikamaru jumped into the tree on either side of the larger boy, only to have what he said confirmed, much to Ino's shock. But Team 7 and Lee had been unwrapping the bandages around his arms. Guy-sensei had told him about this technique when he first learned it. He had also told Lee that there was a certain time when this technique should be used. For Rock Lee, that time was now. Guy-sensei, thought Lee. "I'm using the technique since now is the time for me to protect a precious person." Dosu took this time to rush towards the green-clad genin. However, just as he did, Lee vanished before reappearing in front of him, crouched low to the ground before delivering a powerful kick to the jaw, launching the sound nin into the air. Using his hand to push off the ground, Lee quickly followed him. Appearing behind his opponent, Lee quickly wrapped him up in the bandages. Once that was done, he quickly grabbed hold of him before directing them towards the ground head first. He wasn't done, however, as he started to spin at high speeds and let go once they were close to the ground with a cry of Emoto Renge, initial lotus. His attack, however, did not have the effect it should have. Zaku had seen what was happening and after a quick series of seals had thrown his hands into the ground. Flowing some air into it, he managed to cushion the landing for his teammate. "Looks like I made it in time," said Zaku before his teammate got up. "Impossible," said Lee, seeing his opponent rise. "What a terrifying technique, this much damage even on a sponge of dirt," Dosu thought before standing to his feet and once more pulling up his sleeve. "Now it's my turn." Just then he rushed towards Lee, who was still winded from his use of the technique. Once he reached, he quickly swung his right arm towards Lee's stomach region, making his vision swim. "Your moves is certainly fast," said the Odo Genin. "But ours surpassed that with the speed of sound. Now I'll show you all that hard work alone can do nothing against," finished Dosu. Suddenly Lee hit the ground before vomiting. Just after this he tensed as blood started to leak from his ear. He cursed inwardly before moving his arm to his left ear. "There is a trick to my attack," said Dosu, holding up his right arm. "Just dodging it won't help." "What did he do?" thought Sakura, though she was interrupted by the mummy's laughter. "That sound," continued Dosu after his laughter subsided. "You dodged my fist, but the sound attacked you." "Sound," thought Lee. After some explanations from both male sound nin, the mummy rushed at Sakura. Seeing this, Sasuke's puppy, Team 7's Kunoichi, pulled her own kunai. Both, however, were surprised when Lee rushed forward to protect her. Once more Lee called out for his signature kick, Konoha Senpu, only to freeze in pain mid-kick. Seeing this, the mummy smirked, though it was hidden before using his left hand, sending the leg back towards the ground while he himself rebounded from the ground. "You surprised me a bit," he said, rushing forward. "But I don't see a trace of your combo that was executed in a flash." Once he was close enough, the Odo Genin once again swung his right arm out. Only this time using both arms, Lee blocked the arm. However, this didn't stop the Odo Genin as sound waves started pouring out of his amplifier, though they were going the other way. This arm amplifies the sound that is in it to its maximum like a speaker, spoke the Odo Genin. But the sound is not limited to the direction of my hand. I can use my chakra and send it into the target. Just as he finished that, the sound changed directions and went straight to Lee's injured ear. Once this happened, Lee swayed for a second before collapsing to the ground. "Now then, time to finish you off," said the mummy. Sakura, hearing this, stood to her feet before throwing a few kunai at his face. However, he simply moved his amplifier, blocking them all before looking towards them. But Team 10, they had been watching in the bushes for a while now. Choji was afraid and had already voiced his opinion on leaving this dangerous team alone. "Looks like both Sasuke and Naruto are out of it," spoke Shikamaru. "But even Lee is getting beaten and it's just Sakura left. What are you going to do, Ino?" finished the closet genius. His next sentence, however, made her eyes go wide. "Sakura being in danger is okay with you? I mean, you two were best friends, right?" That sentence there sent Ino right into her memories. She had met Sakura when she was just a shy little girl with a big forehead. They had quickly become best friends even until last year when Sakura had an even bigger forehead. But it was Sakura who cut those ties though. It was Sakura who had broken ties with her so she could chase Sasuke. But even still, what could she do to help Sakura now? Even if she helped, she'd just get beat herself. Battlefield. Sakura had once again started trying to fight back. Her first attack was simply launching a few shuriken, though Zaku quickly sent them back at her via the air holes in his hands. It was at this moment the sound Kunoichi, who up until this point had been forgotten, had got involved. She had quickly appeared behind Sakura, who was crouched to the ground grabbing a fistful of pink locks before pulling the girl onto her ass. "Your hair is glossier than mine," spoke the girl. "If you have time to care for your hair, train more." "Are you trying to be sexy?" asked the girl. "Zaku, kill that Sasuke guy in front of this bitch." "That sounds good," said Zaku. Sakura, hearing this, tried to move once more. This of course resulted in her getting her hair pulled hard and putting her back down. "Alright, let's do this," said Zaku, walking towards the tree Naruto and Sasuke were currently resting in. Sakura meanwhile was once again thinking about her uselessness. This time, however, it was enough to bring tears that slowly slid down her face. She was always being protected not by just her sensei but her teammates, and now even Lee. Coming out of her thoughts, she once again drew a kunai from her holster. "That won't work against me," scoffed the sound Kunoichi. "What are you talking about?" spoke Sakura with a devious grin on her face that was often seen on her blonde teammate before a prank was pulled. This confused the Kunoichi above her. Sakura, however, paid it no mind and brought the kunai up before using it to cut off the section of her hair that the girl was holding on to, shocking everyone, especially Ino. The Kunoichi holding her, however, was sent to the ground due to the fact that she was actually leaning back while pulling on the girl's hair. Once she was free, Sakura stood to her feet with a look of determination on her face. She quickly started on some seals. Zaku, seeing this, called for the girlkin to take her out. She immediately went to do so, only for Sakura to turn into a log when she hit her. Zaku, seeing this, simply held his hands out in front of him. "Who does she think we are? Is she seriously trying to fight me using such a basic jutsu?" thought Zaku while scanning around the area. Sakura quickly appeared, running for Zaku and throwing a multitude of kunai at him. Zaku once again held his hands out, sending out some air pressure while Kin jumped up. Sakura stopped, however, and once again did the seals for Kawarimi, a log replacing her once more. This time it was filled with kunai. Zaku, however, immediately knew she was above him. Looking up, he nearly groaned seeing her once again going through those same seals. "You know that's not going to work more than 2 or 3 times," he said before digging into his own pouch. "This good enough for you?" he finished, launched a few kunai of his own at her. Once he did that, he once again looked around for the girl. He was surprised, however, when blood suddenly fell onto him. Looking up, he saw Sakura still coming down with a kunai in one arm and holding another cocked back ready to stab him. Seeing this, he raised his arm just in time for her to come down. Landing on top of him, she stabbed the kunai into one of his arm while biting the other. This got various reactions from those watching. Zaku, however, reacted differently, taking his other fist and slamming it into her head, demanding her to let go. When she held on, however, he quickly delivered another and kept pounding. Sakura took it the entire time while still holding on to the kunai lodged into his arm, not that it was stopping him from hitting her though. Everyone watched as he continued to pound on her head, which was already busted open. Because of this, no one noticed the aura coming off of Sasuke, well, almost no one. Zaku, after finally prying the girl off his arm, tossed her away before standing. "Cut it out already," spoke Zaku. "I have to protect everyone," thought Sakura, sitting up. Zaku, seeing the defiant look in her eyes, once again held his hands out, palms aimed towards her. "Dumb bitch," spoke Zaku. It was then that Team 10 appeared in front of Sakura, though they literally had to drag Choji by his scarf while Shikamaru did. "So some more weird ones are here now," spoke Zaku. Sasuke's mind, he looked around himself, not knowing where the hell he was. Soon, however, he was able to make out a person in front of him. Someone who was in fact a younger Sasuke. "Itausen and Akasen didn't have to die," spoke the young Sasuke. Once he said that Sasuke himself saw the visions of his dead parents, one lying on top of the other. Everyone was killed. Because I didn't have enough power, the clan was wiped out, finished the young boy before looking eyes with his older self. Real world. The sound genin were getting truly annoyed. They were all tired of this game and ready to finish this. They just keep swarming in, said the mummy. Konoha bugs have wandered in here again. What the hell are you two thinking? Said Choji, these guys are too dangerous. Choji, like Shikamaru, knew they were a weak team. Anyone could tell. Firstly, they had the laziest jounin in Konoha as a sensei. Second, they never trained Shikamaru, either looked at Clouds or played shogi with Asuma. He himself was always eating while watching Clouds or watching his sensei and teammate play shogi. And Ino only fawned over Sasuke or talked about beating Sakura. To top that off, they all only knew one technique. Shikamaru was too lazy to learn new ones. Ino was too busy being a fangirl to learn new ones. And he himself was always too busy eating. He was broken out of his thoughts hearing Shikamaru speaking. It's troublesome, but we have to do this. Since Ino revealed herself, we men can't just run away. Sorry to get you two involved, spoke Ino. But we are a three-man team. We do everything together. Well, whatever happens, said Shika. No. I don't want to die yet, cried Choji, turning and trying to run for it. You can run if you want, said Zaku Fatty. What did that person just say, asked Choji, who had stopped moving completely. I couldn't hear him too well. I said you can go jack off in the woods if you want. You fat ass, said Zaku. This however resulted in Choji doing a complete 180. Turning around, Choji's chakra poured out, forming a tornado around him. Well, he roared about not being fat but big boned. Once everything was settled, they got to work. Choji had quickly done his seals before going into his Baika no Jutsu, double weight technique, making him twice his size. Following this, he pulled his limbs inside his clothes, with chakra coming out the holes for each one including his head, before he curled up, turning himself into a ball. Then with a cry of meat, Tank rolled himself towards Zaku. What is that? It's just a fat ass rolling, said Zaku before once again thrusting his arms out, this time with a cry of Zankyuha, air slicing blast, launching a blast of air at the rolling ball of flesh. After a few moments of the air holding him in place, Zaku put more effort into the attack. What happened however surprised him as Choji went up into the air before falling back towards him. The mummy, seeing this, quickly rushed towards his teammate. Shikamaru however saw him move and was having none of it. He quickly made his seals before calling out Ninpo. Kajime no Jutsu, shadow copy technique. His shadow shot out and connected to his target, stopping the sound nin in his tracks. It was at this time Choji came crashing down, narrowly missing Zaku, who had jumped to the side. Ino, seeing it was her turn, decided to take care of Kin. Telling Shikamaru to take care of her body, she made her seals and called out Ninpo. Shintenshin no Jutsu. Her attack connected and she quickly took control of the girl's body. Choji however still wasn't done and had kept up his attack. Zaku jumped to the side of another pass, knowing this Choji began to circle him. Looking over and seeing Kin doing nothing, he called out to her. Kin. However, she didn't respond. Instead, she pulled out a kunai and held it upwards before speaking. This is it, she spoke. If you move this girl, Kin is dead. If you don't want to retire here, I suggest you leave your scroll and get out of here. Once you two back off enough so we can't feel your chakra, I let the girl go, she finished. This however got different results than she expected as both boys smirked. She quickly called for Choji, who immediately came down. Zaku however had already raised his arm and pointed it straight towards the possessed girl before firing a blast of wind at her. Choji raced to intercept it but was blown away while the possessed Kin was blasted into a tree. Ino, who was now bleeding from the mouth with both her body and Kin's, was shocked they'd attacked their own teammate. You took us too lightly, spoke Zaku. Our purpose is not some dumb scroll or to get through this exam, said the mummy, to the surprise of Team 10. It's Sasuke-kun, he finished. It was then that Shikamaru's shadow retracted, freeing the mummy like genin. Just as they were about to attack and finish it however, a new voice spoke up. How disgusting! Looking up, everyone saw it was Hyuga Niji, who spoke with his teammate Tenten next to him. A mere minor sound shinobi. Acting like victors by beating those second-class shinobi, he finished. You guys keep coming out like roaches, said Zaku. That bobbed-haired kid is on our team, started Niji before his Byakugan activated. Looks like you went overboard with him, he finished, making everyone's eyes go wide. If you're going to continue to fight, then we will fight with everything we have, said Niji. Just then his Byakugan deactivated. What is it, Niji? Asked Tenten. If you don't like what we're doing, then stop showing off and come down here, said the mummy. No. It seems that there is no need for me to do that, said Niji. That's when everyone felt it. Turning, they all saw Sasuke, who was getting to his feet with purple chakra pouring off of him, Sharingan activated and black lines moving across his body. Sakura, who did that to you, spoke Sasuke from inside of the purple chakra. Sasuke-kun, your body, stammered Sakura. After glancing at his body for a moment, Sasuke spoke up. It's fine. More importantly, I can feel power pouring out of me. I'm feeling good right now. Sakura, say it. "Who the hell hurt you like that?" said Sasuke. "I did," spoke Sakura, earning the red-eyed boy's attention. Shikamaru, knowing the danger, quickly called Ino back to her body as well as called for Choji to come back. Neither needed to be told twice and quickly did as told. During this time the lines covering half of the Uchiha's body started to move over to the other half as he turned himself towards Dosu. Knowing the danger of the cursed seal, he quickly tried to retreat. Zaku, however, who had no knowledge of them, was having none of it and quickly spoke up. "Dosu? Don't be afraid of some half-dead guy," he said, moving to attack much to Dosu's protest. "I'll kill them all with this. It will be finished in a flash." But that he thrust his hands out, sending a huge air blast where Team 7 was gathered. The attack blew apart anything that wasn't rooted to its spot. When it died down, he smirked, not seeing anyone from Team 7. "Ah, I blew them all to pieces," said Zaku, breathing heavily. "Blew who to pieces?" came Sasuke's voice from next to him before he was viciously backhanded by the Uchiha and launched right over to Dosu. "He's fast," said Dosu. On top of that, he moved them away while moving instantly. Sasuke took this opportunity and made a few quick seals, launching his attack with a cry of Kaiten. Hausenka, fire element. Phoenix fire, sending several small fireballs towards Zaku. Seeing this, Zaku made one more air blast but was unprepared for the shuriken that were hidden in them. It was then that the Uchiha appeared under Zaku. He quickly got around him before grabbing both of his arms and planting his foot into the boy's back. No one missed the smile that came to his face at that moment. "You seem proud of your arms," spoke the Uchiha, applying more pressure to said limbs. He then proceeded to viciously break the boy's arms while he screamed out in pain. With that done, he turned towards Dosu. "You better entertain me better than he did," spoke the Uchiha while walking forward. Sakura snapped out of her thoughts and was about to go and stop him when he was stopped. Everyone looked towards him and was surprised to see Naruto up. Sasuke looked over and saw him. He was standing with his back towards Dosu, holding Sasuke by his left arm with his head down and hair hiding his eyes. Naruto had awoken when he first felt the boy's aura change. He had been waiting to see what would happen and had seen enough. "Let me go, Dobe," said the Uchiha. "Wait," Naruto said it quietly so only Sasuke could hear it. When the Uchiha tried moving forward again, he was surprised when the grip only tightened. "I said wait," spoke the blonde, looking at him out the corner of his eye. Sasuke recoiled at the sight. He'd never seen eyes so cold in his life. It was for this reason that he decided to see what he would do. Turning towards Dosu, he looked up, locking eyes with the boy before speaking. "You have two choices, either give up your scroll and leave or die," said the blonde, shocking everyone before he continued. "And just so you know, I have no intention of wasting my time with you. Though I would let Sasuke here finish what he started." He finished, turning a smirk from the Uchiha. Dosu wasted no time in surrendering his scroll before grabbing his teammates and getting the hell out of there. Once they were out of sight, Naruto released Sasuke and walked over before sitting with his back to a tree, breathing heavily. But the rush of battle over Sasuke himself fell right on his butt, the markings covering him receding. Sakura, seeing this, immediately rushed over to him. It was thanks to Naruto's enhanced hearing he was able to hear Sasuke tell Sakura not to tell him how the Uchiha got the mark on his neck. Toji and Shikamaru moved over to Naruto while Ino went to fix up Sakura. Tenten and Neji picked up Lee and left then. "You alright?" Naruto asked Choji. "Not really. I'm still not completely healed. That took a lot out of me," replied the blonde. "Well, that's what you get, troublesome blonde," said Shikamaru, earning a smirk from Naruto. Shikamaru was one of the few who knew that Naruto was holding back. Not that he was told, he had just happened to see the blonde while he was training once. It was at this time he saw the blonde could do anything required for a shinobi, except for make a bunshin. It was then he figured out that Naruto had been purposely failing, though he didn't say anything that would be too troublesome. Finally, after Ino was done fixing up Sakura's hair, they each headed out their separate ways. Sasuke looked towards Naruto only to find that his eyes had changed back to the normal happy eyes he usually saw. Seeing this, he just played it off as a trick off his imagination and forgot about it. "Listen, we're short on time. I suggest we head straight towards the tower and take out anyone in the way," said Naruto, getting nods from the Uchiha who he was speaking to. With that, they put on a little more speed and headed that way. Chapter 4. Disclaimer. I don't own anything but the ox. And I would do the preliminaries, but I'm not going to change anything, so I'm skipping it. It's not like you guys don't know how it goes, though I will do a recap. Also, as stated before, this story is a harem which is currently made from Hinata, Kyuubi and Hinamori, though I may add Ino later on, I'm not sure. Our hero was currently walking out of the forest on his way towards the hospital. After finishing the second exam, they had ended up having a preliminary round. He wasn't really in a good mood, so he didn't really pay attention to most of the matches. The ones he did watch, however, were pretty good. Sasuke's match was alright in his opinion, though he found it rather disrespectful that the Uchiha had stolen one of Lee's hard-earned moves. He found he wasn't alone in this, as both Guy and Lee had screamed about the unyouthfulness of the Sharingan. He was also able to finally see one of Suna's famed puppeteers in action and had to admit the Guy Kankuro was good. Shino's match was also pretty good. He got a slight bit of satisfaction seeing Shino cripple that big mouth Odonin with his bugs. He had completely ignored the match between Ino and Sakura simply because neither of them had any skill whatsoever. One would think he would have paid attention to anything involving Sakura since he was always asking her for dates, though that was just part of his mask. He did however know that if that bitch even tried hitting him again, he quickly shook that thought from his head. Anyway, after that match he himself had to fight Kiba. The dog boy had seriously thought he could beat him. Anyway, since he couldn't use most of his chakra, he had settled for a combination of tricks to win his match. The most exciting match however was the match between Fuzzy Brows and that Gar guy. Unfortunately Lee lost both the match and perhaps his shinobi career. Lee apparently was a speed demon and had those ugly orange leg warmers hiding an incredible amount of weights. Then there was Hinata's match. Now that one pissed him off. You see, he had known Hinata for years, however because of his situation, he had convinced her to keep their relationship secret, which is what they'd been doing for a long time. Anyway, she had fought against her cousin Niji. The prick didn't just want to beat her though, no, first he had to try and crush her mentally before fighting, knowing he'd win regardless. You see, it was no secret Hinata's father had abandoned her training years ago, though no one knew the real reason why. He had simply said Hinata was weak, though Naruto had his own suspicions anyway. Long story short, Niji went so far as trying to kill her after the goddamned match was over. It was then when he had lost his patience. The Jounins had stopped Niji. Luckily for him, because of this Naruto changed directions mid-flight to go to Hinata's side. After some snide remarks from the wide-eyed bastard, Naruto had had enough. This time it wasn't the Jounins who stopped Naruto, but the Hokage himself. He had appeared on the ground holding the blonde by the wrist. It was then everyone had seen the kunai he had already pressed into the boy's throat, which was in deep enough to draw blood. Needless to say, it had everyone shocked since nobody knew he could move that fast. Anyway, once Hinata was taken away by the medics, he himself went back into the stands. Though not before telling Niji he'd be kicking his ass should they fight in the third exam. This is the reason he was very pleased when he found he'd be fighting the Hyuga bastard a month from now in the tournament. He had studied the matchups for a while just to know who he'd fight after he crossed the Hyuga, and this is what he found. First match. Uzumaki Naruto vs Hyuga Niji. Second match. Uchiha Sasuke vs Ibaku no Gaara. Third match. Aburame Shino vs Ibaku no Kankuro. Fourth match. Nara Shikamaru vs Kanuta Dosu. Sabaku no Tamari fights the winner of the fourth match. He was broken out of his thoughts upon entering the hospital. There in front of him is none other than Kakashi. Deciding to play nice, he went up to the man only to be interrupted before he could speak. "Before you ask, I can't train you," spoke Kakashi. "Let me guess, you're training your precious Uchiha," was Naruto's reply. Ma, don't be like that anyway, I already found someone to train you," said Kakashi. Once he said that, closet pervert Ibisu came out of hiding, causing Naruto to frown. "No thanks. Oh, and just for the record, I wasn't going to ask you to train me," said Naruto before pushing past the Jounin. "You know, I do hope I make Chunin, at least that way I get off this so-called team," spoke the blonde before walking up to the receptionist and getting Hinata's room number. Meanwhile, both Kakashi and Ibisu were stunned, Kakashi more so than Ibisu. Ibisu had known that the boy was more than he let on to be since that night they met. While he may have initially disliked the blonde, that opinion had changed upon seeing the good impact he made on Konohamaru. He simply chuckled before leaving Kakashi still standing there stunned speechless before he shrugged it off and went for Sasuke. An hour later found Naruto in Sandame's office. He had actually just gotten in after that rotten secretary decided to do her job. After having the seal that the Hebe put on him removed, he decided to ask about the other one. "Vijaya-san, did you know about the suppression seal?" asked he blonde quietly. "What suppression seal, Naruto-kun?" asked the old man, knowing there were many holding Kyuubi back. "The one that's been suppressing all of my abilities, and I mean all of them," said the blonde. "Explain," said the old man. "Firstly, I'm not getting enough spiritual energy running through me, which is screwing up my chakra control. Second, I found out it's affecting my speed, strength and my memory," explained the blonde. "Sorry Naruto-kun, that I didn't know about," said Sarutobi. The blonde nodded hearing this and was just about to leave when he turned back. "Vijaya-san, do you know anybody who could train me for the exams?" asked the blonde. "What happened to Kakashi?" asked the old man. Naruto scowled before answering. "Apparently his time's better spent on the village's precious Uchiha," said the blonde, spitting the name out. Sandame frowned hearing this before writing something on a piece of paper and handing it to the blonde. Seeing the boy's confused look, he explained. "You should find a white-haired old man named Jiraiya near the bathhouses. Once you do hand him that and he'll train you," said the old man. "Are you sure? I mean, he's not another of the demon haters, is he?" asked the blonde. "No, far from it. He was actually one of my students and the man that trained the fourth," said Sarutobi. The blonde's eyes went wide hearing this before he thanked the old man and left the building. Once he was gone, Sarutobi sighed. It seems he'd made a mistake allowing Naruto to be with Kakashi. "Elsewhere," said Copy Nin, sneezed for the fifth time. He was currently training Sasuke to enhance his speed. He had big plans for the Uchiha concerning these exams, there was no way his favorite student would lose to any of them. But Naruto finally arrived at the bathhouses. He'd run into Sakura earlier who was complaining about not being able to find Sasuke, needless to say he had completely brushed her off. After searching around a bit he decided he'd relax while he could and walked inside. It was while he was heading inside that he heard the sound. He recognized the sound of course, since his pervert of a sensei makes it a lot. It was perverted giggling however, instead of going over there he decided to mind his own business. After a while of the giggling his curiosity got the better of him and he looked towards the noise. Looking the man over he saw long white hair that went to past the man's mid-back. He wore sandals that were more common to samurai or so he'd heard. He also wore a red vest or jacket he couldn't tell from behind and he had a large scroll on his back. Curiosity once again winning over his more cautious nature he decided to speak up. However upon getting no response he got out of the oh so relaxing hot water and walked over to the man. "Excuse me, you wouldn't happy to be Jiraiya, would you?" asked the blonde. "And if I am?" asked the man not even looking at him. "Then I have something for you." This caught the man's attention. Turning his head he looked the blonde over and didn't like what he saw. It wasn't until he saw the whisker-like marks on his cheeks did recognition enter the man's eyes. "What would that be, Gaki?" Naruto said nothing, simply handing the man the Hokage's note from his pocket. Jiraiya read it over before nodding to himself. Folding the note up he looked at the blonde before speaking. "Alright, I'll train you, Gaki, meet me here tomorrow morning at 9. Getting a nod from the boy he turned back to his work. Once he knew he was gone, he went back to giggling. The next morning, Naruto was currently heading once more towards the bathhouses. He had been up since about 7. It's not that he woke up that early for this reason, it just happened since he was so used to getting up early. In the shinobi world most people were up at about 5 and at home around 8. He quickly arrived in the same spot he'd met Jiraiya, finding he was the first to arrive. 2 minutes later Jiraiya himself came strolling up, taking this time the blonde studied the man. He found his shirt and pants were a very light green, he still wore the red vest and had some kind of hitite on his head with the kanji for oil. Once the man reached the blonde they both walked off until they found a lake. Once they did the man ran through a few seals before slamming his hand to the ground, calling out Kuchi's no jutsu, summoning technique. There was a cloud of smoke which cleared revealing a toad with a large scroll in its mouth. Once the scroll was on the ground and unrolled Naruto following Jiraiya's instructions quickly signed his name to it in blood of course, before putting down a handprint as well. Once that was done Jiraiya explained he'd be teaching the blonde how to summon. After a while Jiraiya decided to let the blonde try it out. What resulted from this got sweat drops from both. "I guess my control is still screwed from what the Hebe did," muttered the blonde catching Jiraiya's attention. "What are you talking about, Gaki?" asked the white-haired pervert. "During the second exam this creepy grass nin attacked my team and put a 5-point seal on me. I had a Jaisen remove it, but I guess the damage is still done," said the blonde. Jiraiya's face darkened hearing that there were only 3 people besides him who could use that seal. One of them just so happened to be very snake-like. He quickly shook those thoughts away before telling the blonde to start water walking. Seeing his confused look he spoke up. What did Kakashi teach you?" asked the pervert. "Tree walking," said the blonde. "That's it?" asked the man with a scowl. "Yeah, not like I expected much anyway," said the blonde. "Would you say that?" asked Jiraiya. "People have been trying to hinder me all my life. I had no reason to believe he wouldn't, besides it's not like he pays attention to anyone besides the Uchiha anyway," said the blonde. "You don't like your team?" asked the man. "No, I don't. I'd quit if I could, but I'm stuck unless I make Chunin," said the boy. "Not necessarily," said Jiraiya. "I could talk to the old man and make you my apprentice," he finished. "You do that?" asked the blonde. "Yeah, you actually remind me of my last apprentice," said Jiraiya. "Yondaime," said the blonde getting a nod from the man. "Honestly I'm confused on the man. I don't know whether to hate him or admire him," said Naruto. Jiraiya said nothing, knowing what the boy was talking about. He had talked to Sarutobi yesterday, so he knew how the blonde was treated around the village. He'd also been told about the blonde's mask, which he's actually seen very little of. After a moment more the duo got back to work with Jiraiya telling the blonde how to do the exercise. Once he left the blonde to his own devices while he went off for a bit of research. Jiraiya returned to find Naruto passed out under the trees. It had been a couple of hours, plenty of time for him to go see the old man and get some research done. In that time he had got the old man's consent and taken Naruto off of Team 7, officially making him his apprentice. He had also found out about the suppression seal that the blonde had neglected to mention, though he paid it no mind, figuring that the boy thought that if Sandaime couldn't do it, then no one could. He shook himself from his thoughts before waking the blonde. Once he got him up he spoke. "Alright, I've got the old man to agree, so you're off Team 7, and as of this moment my apprentice," spoke the pervert getting a nod from the blonde. "Now this means lots of things, most importantly that you'll need new clothes." He stopped, seeing the frown come on the boy's face. That's impossible, no one will sell me any good clothes or tools for that matter, since everyone wants me to die, said the blonde. Jiraiya nodded at that since it made perfect sense with everything else that's happened in the boy's life. If that's the case, I'll pick up some things for you, alright. Next is from now on I'll be training you hard. Well, I would normally leave and do some research, you've been neglected enough as it is. He paused for breath before continuing. That's all for today. Meet me here tomorrow same time. Getting a nod from the blonde, he disappeared in a puff of smoke. At night, Naruto once again awoke in the sewers he now associated with his mind. This time was different however, as he felt himself being pulled in a certain direction upon reaching his destination. He once again found himself facing the fox, only this time there was no wall blocking it. Come closer kid, spoke the fox. Not one to show fear, he did as asked and didn't even budge when the claws shot out at him, stopping just a few inches away from him. Impressive, you show no fear, spoke the fox. But you're still far too weak. What do you want, fox, spoke Naruto in an annoyed tone. You've impressed me, kid. I wanted to see you for myself is all, spoke the fox. If that's all you wanted then I'm leaving. With that said, the blonde turned and started to walk out. I could break the suppression seal, spoke the fox, stopping Naruto in his tracks. What do you want in return, asked Naruto warily. I want out, said the fox. No deal, said the blonde before once again turning away. I didn't mean it that way, said the fox, getting the blonde's attention. Seeing this, it continued. I meant you could summon me out. I mean it's cramped in here, I need to stretch my legs, said the fox. You sound like such a girl right now, said the boy with a smirk. I am a girl, roared Kyuubi, knocking the blonde on his ass. With that there was a puff of smoke which cleared to reveal something completely different. Inside the cage now stood a girl who looked to be about 15 years old. She had long red hair, a pair of fox ears and pink eyes. She had a considerable amount of bust as well as 9 tails swaying behind her. It was at this point Naruto realized one critical thing: she was completely naked. This of course resulted in him being launched backwards by a massive nosebleed. Once he regained consciousness and was back on his feet, he looked over, finding her to have some clothes on now. She now wore a pair of black pants and a pink shirt with some black sandals on her feet. He didn't know whether to be grateful or cry because of this. Anyway, like I was saying, I'll remove the suppression seal if you let me out every once in a while, spoke Kyuubi, getting a nod from the blonde. Once she saw that red chakra leaked out the cage before engulfing the blonde while some went down the corridor. She was impressed since the boy wasn't screaming, though he was whimpering from the pain. Finally it was over, leaving the blonde panting while she looked him over. He had now developed an impressive set of claws as well as some fangs. Finally the whisker marks on his cheeks thickened and his eyes had become slitted but were still blue. Lastly his hair became wilder and shaggier, turning a darker yellow, making it resemble fur. Then just as suddenly as he changed, he was normal again, though his hair remained the same and he was a bit taller. What the hell was that, panted the blonde. That was your gift for impressing me. If you look you'll notice you now sport a nice set of claws as well as some fangs. Along with that I've enhanced your senses to that of a kitsune, spoke Kyuubi, getting a nod from the boy. What's the catch, am I part demon now or something, asked the blonde. You've been part demon for a while now, spoke Kyuubi, getting a confused look from the blonde. Remember the bridge incident where you took some of my power since then? I just activated your abilities is all, said Kyuubi. Naruto nodded, hearing this part, though it didn't change much to him anyway. Alright, you might want to sit down. We have lots to discuss, said Kyuubi. Naruto nodded before making a leather reclining chair appear and sitting down. Hokage Tower. Sarutobi was just finishing up his paperwork when he felt it. He hadn't felt a power like this for 12 years. Looking into his crystal ball, he found Naruto still fast asleep, his body having a blue outline glowing around it which quickly faded. He also noticed his clawed hands just before they returned to their regular shape. Then for just a split second he saw a sword appear by the blonde, though it too faded out of existence. It was for this reason he decided to keep watching just in case anything else happened. The next day, Naruto was awoken to the sound of knocking on his door, which was something quite odd for someone who'd never had visitors. Upon answering the door he found it was none other than Jiraiya with a large bag in his hand, which he quickly tossed to the blonde before walking inside. Hurry up and get changed, we have lots to do today, said Jiraiya, getting a nod from the blonde who took the pack to change. He came out wearing black shinobi sandals and pants that were bandaged at the ends. He also wore a black shirt which he thought to be rather tight and a large black trench coat. He had also replaced his blue headband for a black one but kept the same Haiti. Getting a nod from the older man who quickly grabbed his shoulder, both disappeared in a puff of smoke. Hokage Tower. Sarutobi sighed behind the mountain of paperwork he found himself doing. He'd been thinking about the situation with Naruto all night before finally making the decision to tell the boy about his family. He just hoped that the boy would take the news well. With Naruto, to say Jiraiya was impressed would be an understatement. They had come out here and Naruto was stronger and faster than yesterday. He also noticed that the blonde's attention span had increased as well as his chakra control. He had also checked for his elemental affinity, finding the boy's chakra to be wind-natured. They were currently in the middle of a spar since Jiraiya had wanted to test the boy's level. It seems the boy had learned more than one jutsu from the Forbidden Scroll, if his usage of Kage Kunai no Jutsu was any indication. Calling for a stop, he decided to test the boy's summoning skills. A few quick seals and a thumb bite later, and Naruto was standing on a medium-sized toad. Naruto dismissed it before using Kyuubi's chakra per Jiraiya's instruction. This time the cloud of smoke was massive, and Naruto was starting out at above the trees. "Jiraiya, why have you summoned me?" yelled the toad. Naruto, who was panting, quickly explained to the toad what was going on. The toad was skeptical at first, but after looking closer at the boy knew he had done it. In the end the toad Gamabunta simply said to summon him if he needed anything, though once he could they were getting a drink. Jiraiya, who was watching from his hiding spot, couldn't believe it. Naruto had done what even he couldn't do in befriending the boss toad. He and the old man would definitely have to talk, and soon something about the kid was far too familiar. Elsewhere, 10 people were currently gathered inside of a large room. Each of them wore a black kimono, a black hakama, a white sash around the waist and a white haori. They were currently lined up in 2 parallel lines facing each other, with one, the oldest, standing at the head between each. He himself was an older man. He had a bald head and a long white beard that he had somehow managed to bind together with a long black string. In his left hand he carried a large wooden staff, and although he was old, he exuded an aura of power stronger than anyone in the room. After looking around and seeing everyone gathered, he spoke up. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. I know you all have lots to do, so I'll get straight to the point." He paused for a moment, then continued. "Last night there was a massive amount of Reiatsu detected in the human world," stated the old man. After this was said, one person raised their hand and spoke after receiving permission. "Sir, large amounts of Reiatsu are always detected there. How does this warrant any concern?" The speaker was female, judging by the feminine voice. "True. However, what is my concern is that I've been told that in 3 years this person could develop as much Reiatsu as Kurosaki Ichigo had when he first started," spoke the old man, shocking many. "The Reiatsu vanished as quickly as it appeared, however. I will be having the area monitored in case it appears again. It goes without saying that we cannot have ace in finding the one who emitted such power," said the old man. He paused, then continued. "I will be sending the 10th Division captain to monitor the situation. The rest of you are dismissed." With that, all but the said person left, leaving the two alone. He was young, the youngest in the group, looking to be in his early teens, and had short white hair and green eyes. He also had a sword band wrapped around his back that was made from a long pale green cloth, which was of course holding his sword. "You will be traveling to the elemental continents, to the village of Konoha. The elemental countries are all currently hidden behind a very powerful illusion isolating them from the rest of the world." He paused for a moment, then continued. "You are to find the one emitting the Reiatsu and monitor them. Any findings you make, report back to me directly. You leave tomorrow," finished the older man. "Hi, Yamato-sama," spoke the white-haired youth before leaving. The man known as Yamato sighed. Hopefully they could prevent anything from getting too dangerous around there. He wasn't worried the Hitsugaya Toshiro, although young, was one of the best, which is exactly why he sent him. Still, something about that Reiatsu was familiar to him. It was for this reason that he was worried. He knew of only one person who had stayed there, as well as her child. He quickly shook that thought away, as the child was reported to have died the night he was born. And with as many people who had died that night, it was definitely possible. He sighed once again before heading outside. He definitely needed some air. Chapter 5. And firstly, I want to thank everyone for the reviews. Now some people are probably wondering why the hell I took so long to update. Simply put, I was sick, so no writing was being done. Next, to answer a few people's questions, I actually have thought about putting either Yoroichi, Soifun, or Matsumoto in the harem. In the end, however, I decided against it and went with Hinamori. Start now. It was nice and quiet. The perfect setting if you ask Uzumaki Naruto. He'd been up for about an hour now, sitting on top of the monument. For as long as he could remember, he would come and watch the sun rise from on top of the monument. Nobody was ever up this early, which meant no one was glaring at him. Every day was the same for him: wake up and watch the sun rise. Then slap on a cheesy grin and deal with the glares, insults and all-around mistreatment all day. Though he truly loved the village, he had long since given up on its people. As far as he was concerned, they were a lost cause, especially the older generation. His generation was in the middle ground, while Konohamaru's generation was fine. It was for them that he would become Hokage. It's funny, in the beginning becoming Hokage had just been a part of his mask, like his infatuation with Sakura. It was Hinata that had convinced him to actually go for it, and it was for her that he would. For them, they had things all planned out. If he were to become Hokage and she the Hyuga head, then together they'd be able to change things. The first of which would be removing and banning the caged bird seal. That is, of course, if he lived long enough to make it happen. Well, he pretended to be one. He was no one's fool. He had known for a while the council was trying to have him killed, especially Sandame's former teammates. Then there was Danzo to deal with since the fool was trying to turn him into a weapon. He shook himself from his thought seeing the sun coming up and headed back towards his apartment. Once back inside he settled himself down before going to go see his resident vixen. Navigating through the halls of his mind he quickly found himself in front of Kyuubi finding her still sleeping. For a moment he just stood back and watched her as she slept. He couldn't believe the being in front of him was the fearsome Kyuubi. He'd mistake her for an angel if he didn't know who she was. The two had already made peace with each other, though she still wouldn't tell him why she attacked. He had also changed her surroundings a bit, at least what he could. Instead of the cage that once held her, she was now in a bedroom of sorts. She of course had a bed, a desk, a bookshelf and a fireplace. There was a couch in the room as well as 2 reclining chairs. He had created a door which leads to a garden with flowers of every kind he knew. Finally she now wore a black choker around her neck with the kanji for seal in the front. After a moment more he changed his mind and hopped onto the couch to catch some extra sleep. Hokage Tower. Sarutobi was engaged in the fiercest battle of his life. He was battling against his greatest enemy to date, an enemy far worse than Orochimaru could ever be. This enemy just couldn't stay down and was more annoying than Guy's youth rants. It was the greatest enemy of all cages, the enemy known as paperwork. In all of his years as Hokage combined he still couldn't stop it. It was Yondaime who had, gaining him the title of greatest cage ever. Sadly he had taken the secret with him to his grave. Normally the Sandaime wouldn't be caught dead in this office at this hour. However today was different as he had plans for today. Today would be the day that he'd tell Naruto of his heritage. He had a feeling he wouldn't be around much longer and didn't want to take this secret to his grave. With that thought in mind he put a bit more effort into his work hoping to finish this soon. But Jiraiya, he was also up early working. He hadn't done any research since he had taken Naruto as his apprentice. The kid was like a sponge absorbing whatever he could teach him, especially jutsus. He had learned the few jutsus he taught him quickly, though he kept going until he mastered it instead of just learning it and trying another one. They'd been mostly working on the boy's taijutsu and chakra control. While his control improved a bit, it still wasn't that good. His taijutsu however was just horrible. Apparently the kid hadn't been lying when he'd said people had been trying to hinder him. While the boy could brawl, it was nothing in comparison to a true taijutsu style. He did notice however the blonde seemed to be learning quickly. Though that could probably be because he was tired of losing their spars all the time. He had also learned a lot from his new apprentice, such as the fact Kyuubi's a girl and apparently a hot one. He had been trying to get Naruto to use her chakra when Naruto told him how he met her. That was the first time he had actually wished the Kyuubi was sealed in him instead. He had also been helping the boy hone his new senses. The boy's senses had increased at least 10 times. He could now make an Inyazuka's nose look like that of a regular human. He also now had a great pair of eyes which let him see at a distance, gave him night vision, and apparently could make things out in greater detail. He shook himself from his thoughts before turning back to the springs. He was careful to keep his giggling quiet as these were all Anbu level kunoichi he was using for his research. This was the only bad thing about starting this early, all the strong kunoichi were here since they couldn't come any other time. He shook his head quickly and got back to work praying to not be caught. But Naruto had just been awakened by Kyuubi. Once he was she immediately got down to business. She had been teaching the blonde everything they wouldn't teach him in the academy and some things they hadn't taught at all. Naruto for his part was actually learning it and remembering due to his now unsuppressed mind. This had been going on since they had first spoken. She was currently teaching the blonde how to dispel Jinjutsu. They had already discovered that he would never be able to use Jinjutsu, but she'd teach him how to break and counter them. She had gone through his memories and was determined to have him ready for this tournament. Especially with him there he'd need to be, otherwise he'd die. She was broken from her thoughts, feeling a presence near her vessel's body. "It's time to go, someone's in the apartment," spoke Kyuubi. Naruto nodded with narrowed eyes before he faded out. Real world. When Naruto awoke his hand immediately went around the handle of a kunai. He made sure not to move anything but his hand, keeping himself under the sheets of his bed. This wasn't the first time this happened, he'd had years of experience dealing with assassination attempts. "Boy, wake up, Gaki, Sarutobi-sensei wants to see you," came Jiraiya's voice. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief hearing his voice. "You know you shouldn't do that," spoke Naruto, surprising Jiraiya before removing the blanket, showing the kunai in his hand. "It could get you killed," finished the blonde. "Anyway, get dressed, the old man wants us there in 30 minutes, spoke Jiraiya, hiding his surprise, getting a nod from the boy. With that he grabbed the boy by the shoulder before they both disappeared in a poof of smoke. Hokage Tower. The old man was currently gazing out the window towards the Hokage monument. After a few more moments he sat back in his seat and lit his pipe. Taking a few puffs he exhaled before turning his attention to the two in the room. "I've given this a lot of thought and have determined that it's time you learned of your family, Naruto-kun," spoke the old man, causing Naruto's eyes to go wide. Now before I begin you must know that this must remain a secret, as such only tell those you feel you can trust fully. He finished, getting a nod from the blonde. Your family Naruto-kun originated from Kusa, grass, and is the noblest family in our village. They are also the most secretive clan to exist within Konoha. In fact, they are so secretive except for us no one knows they even exist. Your clan Naruto-kun is known as the Senju, said the old man. Unfortunately the clan nearly died out during the Great Shinobi Wars. I was never told how, just that they nearly died out. Those that managed to survive split up in two different directions. Some came and settled here in Fire Country and eventually building and naming our village, said Sarutobi. Wait, if that's the case then both Shadame and Nidame would be related to me, right? Said Naruto with wide eyes. That's correct my senseis, the Shadame and Nidame Hokages are in turn your uncle and great-grandfather, spoke Sarutobi much to Naruto's and Jiraiya's shock. Wait, you're telling me he's related to Tsunade, said Jiraiya with wide eyes. He's her nephew, said Sarutobi. Wait, what about my parents, asked Naruto. Sarutobi sighed, knowing the easy part was over with. Now would be the hard part, hopefully though Naruto wouldn't overreact. Your mother is a mystery to me, Naruto-kun, sadly all I know is her name Kushina, spoke the old man. Your father however I know plenty about. He was one of the greatest shinobi to ever live. He was actually a lot like you are, his name was Senju Namikaze Minato, spoke Sandame, waiting for the explosion. He sighed however when it didn't come. Wait, you're telling me he's Yondame's Gaki, said Jiraiya before he shook his head, mumbling to himself about how he couldn't figure it out. Are you telling me my own father did this to me, said Naruto angrily. Sarutobi sighed once again, this time looking like the old man that he was. He knew this would happen the minute the blonde found out. Well, the blonde used to look up to Yondaime, his image of him shattered when he found out about Kyuubi being sealed in him by the man. Naruto himself was beyond pissed. He couldn't understand how the man could be his father, yet force him to live a life worse than death. The man had ruined his life before he even had a chance at living it. Tell me, Naruto-kun, spoke Sandame, breaking the boy from his thoughts. Could you sacrifice someone else's child when you had one yourself? Could you trust anyone else besides your own flesh and blood with power like Kyuubi's? The blonde shinobi sighed, hearing that of course he couldn't do something like that. He could never see himself forcing someone else to live his life. He really couldn't see himself handing a power like Kyuubi's to anyone, especially people like the Uchihas and Hyugas. So what now, spoke Naruto quietly. But that they discussed other things, namely his inheritance. This of course included a house and a nice portion of the village. It also included some money as well as a few scrolls, including the Forbidden Scroll. Elsewhere, Itsugaya Toshiro scowled as he walked down the streets of Konoha. He'd been here for 2 weeks and still hadn't found who he was looking for. He had discovered that most of the shinobi had a large amount of Ryatsu, though he hadn't found anyone with enough to warrant any concern. He had however felt a presence that was different from the others. When he went to investigate, he had found a young red-headed shinobi with a kanji for love on his forehead and a large gourd on his back. While his presence was different, it wasn't who he was looking for. He had also discovered that the one they had called Hokage had a lot of Ryatsu, enough to become a Shinigami when he died. He was broken from his thoughts when a different presence hit his senses. Following it, he came to a small stand of some kind. Upon entering, he found a blonde shinobi who looked to be around the same age as he himself looked. He raised an eyebrow, seeing the number of bowls the blonde had stacked to the side. Sitting down, he ordered 1 bowl of miso before closing his eyes and focusing on the blonde's Ryatsu. It took him a few minutes to find it, which was a surprise, but upon finding it, he inwardly smirked at finding who he was looking for. Naruto himself was on his 8th bowl. Jiraiya had given him the day off, not really surprising for what he learned today. I mean, who wouldn't be surprised about finding out they were of the noblest clan in their village after living the life he lived for 12 years. Even still, he knew it wouldn't change anything right now. He couldn't touch anything of his family's until he was either 16 or until Tsunade, who he found out was one of the Sannin, returned, as she is his last known living relative. He had been told that the reason no one knows of the Senju clan was because members of the clan don't use the clan name. Apparently the males of the clan always used a different clan name, while females dropped it altogether. This was why his father was known as Namikaze Minato and not Senju. He scowled thinking of that man. As far as he was concerned, the man, while noble, was a fool. He quickly shook his head, removing the negative thoughts before finishing the last of his ramen. Once done, he paid, thanked him and the old man, and left, heading for the one spot in the village where he knew he could be alone. Hokage Tower. Both Sarutobi and Jiraiya were still in the office. They had seen how Naruto had taken the news and felt for the boy. Though the blonde had stopped wearing his mask, neither would be able to tell what he was thinking if not for his eyes. The blonde's eyes had changed for just a split second, but they had both seen it clearly. The coldness in the boy's eyes when he looked down at the village would have frozen it over if they had the power. Jiraiya himself was currently lost in thought. How was it he had Minato's son as his apprentice and didn't know it? He should have seen it from the beginning. The two had too many similarities. Both had bright blonde hair as well as those deep blue eyes, which no one else in the village had. Both of them were ninjutsu sponges, and neither could use ninjutsu to save their lives. Both were extremely protective of their friends as well. Both had a presence that immediately captured the attention of everyone in the room. But the thing that topped all of that was their determination. Both were determined to accomplish their goals so much so that you had no choice but believe they could do it, no matter how impossible it seems. For Minato that was stopping Kyuubi and for Naruto that is gaining the village's acknowledgement. That would probably be the only real thing about Naruto when he was under the mask. Everything else was a stretch according to his sensei. Well, it's true the boy had a playful side, cheerfulness was something he lacked as he had never been cheerful for anything in his life. He quickly shook those thoughts from his head, hoping to keep the negativity out. After a few more minutes the Toad Sage stood before disappearing in a puff of smoke, leaving Sarutobi to his thoughts. Elsewhere, Sasuke was panting heavily. Upon awakening he had been told by Kakashi that his training would begin immediately. With his Sharingan they had began working on his speed and Taijutsu by remembering and focusing on Lee's movements, he was able to copy it. He smirked to himself at that thought. Though the spandex-wearing teen had beaten him before he knew it wouldn't happen again. In fact he was pretty sure no one in the tournament could beat him. After all he was in Uchiha, so it was only natural he'd be better than them. At night, Naruto sighed staring up at the moonlit sky. He had come directly to this spot after leaving Ichiraku's not stopping for anything. This spot was his getaway that no one, not even Hinata knew about. This spot was where he came whenever the problems of the village got to him. He had also stayed here for a while when he was thrown out of the orphanage. He had stayed here for 2 years until he met the Hokage when he was 6. Glancing around one last time his gaze landed on the lake for a brief instant before he turned and headed back to the village. After a while he found himself back in the village jumping across the rooftops. He stopped however feeling a strong killing intent from behind him. Turning around he saw the red-headed Tsunagen and Sabaku no Gaara. Blue and green eyes stared each other down for a few moments before the redhead spoke up. Your aura is different. The power in it is the same as what I sensed 2 weeks ago, spoke the Tsunanin, his emotionless expression still in place, though curiosity was in his voice. Things change was Naruto's response. I'm going to enjoy killing you, said the Tsunagenin before he disappeared in a whirl of sand. Naruto himself simply turned around and continued on his way. Not even bothering to give what was said any thought. Not that he wasn't worried because he knew the Tsunanin would hold true if given the chance. As well as the fact he could feel the demonic presence coming from the redhead. The reason he didn't think about it however was this. He was too tired to give a shit right now. That's all there was to it. The only thing on the blonde's mind at the moment was getting back to his crappy apartment and going to sleep. Arriving at his apartment the blonde quickly unlocked the door before walking straight to his bed and collapsing face first falling asleep instantly. Mindscape. The blonde opened his eyes finding himself in the halls of his mind. It took him very little time to find his way to what he now called Kyuubi's den. The vixen seeing him motioned for him to approach which he did cautiously. While he wasn't afraid of Kyuubi he knew that it was time for his combat training. Kyuubi had been teaching how to fight since the beginning. Well it's true he'd been fighting all his life, he was a brawler and had no set style or any proper form. Kyuubi was fixing that problem, teaching him a style from her own clan to reflect the blonde's new demonic heritage. Once he was close enough Kyuubi pounced coming at him hard and fast. Naruto groaned because of this knowing it would be a long night. 2 weeks later, the countdown to the tournament was over. The weeks to some of the participants had passed far too quickly. While for others such as Sabaku no Gaara it didn't pass quickly enough. The village had been flooded with people to see the tournament, most betting on either the Hyuga or the Uchiha to win it. During this time Naruto had not been seen in the village once. The villagers had begun spreading rumors of his death because of this. In the whole month only 3 people had seen the blonde in the village, Sarutobi, Gaara, and the owner of Ichiraku's. None of them however made any comments upon hearing the rumors. Naruto himself was currently standing at Team 7's traditional training grounds with Jiraiya. The reason I say traditional training grounds is because every Team 7 including Sarutobi's Genin team, the Sannin, Yandame's Genin team, Kakashi's, and Naruto's own previous team had always trained here. They were just finishing up Naruto's warm-up exercises. Jiraiya had told him warming up now would get him ready for his match. This was the sight Hyuga Hinata saw upon arriving there where she was supposed to meet the blonde. She blushed heavily upon seeing Naruto again. While they had known each other for years, Hinata still blushed every time she saw him. Which she knew he would never figure out why because of his lack of knowledge on certain subjects as a result of his childhood. She had also heard the rumors of Naruto's death but knew they weren't true. She knew Naruto, as stubborn as he is, wouldn't die until he accomplished his goals and she wouldn't allow it until she accomplished hers. She once again blushed heavily at that thought and the naughty thoughts that it triggered. Naruto looked up and smiled seeing his closest friend. This wasn't the smile of his mask, but one that Hinata had the privilege of being one of the only people to see from him, a true smile. After the introductions were made and greetings exchanged, Jiraiya grabbed both genin by the shoulders before disappearing in a whirl of leaves. The stadium was packed with everyone from villagers to the Fire Country's daimyo. Sarutobi himself was seated in a special booth reserved for the cages of the participants. Beside him sat the Kazukiage who had arrived not long ago. Looking down, Sarutobi saw all but 2 genin had arrived, those 2 being Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke. He wasn't the only person however that noticed this, for everyone did. For most, they were wondering where the Uchiha was, while some of the villagers smirked not seeing Naruto, believing the rumors to be true. Neji himself was smirking, believing Naruto had run away, not wanting to face him. Everyone looked up when Gaara took a few steps back. Temari and Kankuro seeing this did likewise, knowing Gaara had reasons for doing anything. They moved just in time as a whirlwind of leaves picked up, obscuring everyone's vision. When it cleared, there stood a completely different Uzumaki Naruto than they remembered. They looked over his new outfit, some, the females drooling, seeing how the shirt clung to him, showing off his muscles, while his trench coat blew in the wind. Moving their gaze, they saw along with him was the Hyuga heiress Hinata, and for those who knew of him, the Toad-san and Jiraiya. Jiraiya, after confirming they were on time, looked at the blonde, receiving a nod, before once again taking Hinata by the shoulder, this time disappearing in a poof of smoke. Naruto turned, feeling the killing intent directed at him, to find Gaara glaring at him. Seeing this, the blonde leveled his own glare, unconsciously releasing his own killing intent, which combined with Kyuubi's. This of course startled all the shinobi on the field. Belief nin caused they had never seen the blonde like this. The Sunanin however were shocked that the blonde produced a level of killing intent that surpassed Gaara's own. A8 himself however was shivering, feeling Kyuubi's killing intent again, as were any other shinobi who had ever felt it. What shocked them however was that Naruto seemed to not even notice. Then just as quickly as it escaped, it disappeared, letting everyone breathe a sigh of relief, while Gaara grinned maniacally. Neither Gaara nor Naruto moved, both staring each other down hard. The stare down was broken however when Hayate spoke up, catching their attention. Telling everyone not fighting to clear out, which they did. Only Naruto and Neji were left on the ground. Neji stared at the blonde coldly, while the blonde looked almost bored. In the stand, Sakura scoffed at the flashy appearance of the blonde. Ino however was drooling at what she saw. She had thought Naruto was cute for a long time, as she had seen him before he donned the orange monstrosity. She remembered this version of Naruto from before he had started his pranking career. This was the Naruto that glared back at those who glared at him. This was the Naruto that would hit you before he smiled at you. All in all, this was what was underneath the prankster, the real Naruto, and she couldn't be happier seeing him again. She always did like the bad boy type after all. It was this Naruto that she liked, which in turn had set off her crush on the Uchiha, as he was somewhat like this Naruto, since he had a badass aura about him, though it was nowhere near as strong as Naruto's is. Sarutobi himself smiled. It seemed it was time to see what Naruto could really do. It was then that Jiraiya appeared in a poof of smoke beside him before sitting in the chair that was left for him. The Anbu members in the arena each had smirks hidden behind their masks. Each of these people were once charged with watching the blonde during his childhood and had seen the things he would do to protect himself. They had seen when the mobs would try to get him and he would fight the entire mob, even though he knew he'd lose. Another person however paid him no mind. This was Hyuga Hiashi, head of the Hyuga clan. In his mind, the blonde stood no chance. He was fighting a Hyuga after all. It was for this reason he told Hanabi, his youngest daughter, to watch the match closely. Hayate himself was smirking inwardly. He honestly felt bad for the Hyuga. For this Naruto was different than the other one, he could feel it. Hell, he could tell just by the way he stood. This was the Naruto he had heard about, the one that children were told to stay away from by their parents. For most of the shinobi, it wasn't because of the Kyuubi, since they had faith in Yondaime. No, it was because Naruto didn't take any shit and wouldn't hesitate to hurt those who crossed him. He quickly shook himself from his thoughts before speaking. First match: Hyuga Neji vs Uzumaki Naruto. Hajime. Chapter 6. Demons Clash, Shinigami's Birth. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto or Bleach, though I wish I did. And hey folks, I know it's been a while, but this chapter was hell for me. Hopefully though I'll be able to update chapters every 2 weeks from now on. Now, as far as the harem is concerned, I had wanted to keep it small. However, after many requests and lots of thinking, I decided to add 2 more people, Soifun and Tatsuki. Now for the people who ask me to add certain people, I won't, firstly because I had other plans for them, and secondly your only reason was they have big boobs. So with that settled, the harem now officially is made up of Hinata, Kyuubi, Ino, Hinamori, Soifun and Tatsuki. Yes, you read right, I'm not removing my Momo-chan. Seriously, some of you guys give her way too little credit. Start, now. Neither moved for a long while, simply staring each other down. Neji, who had already slid into his taijutsu stance, watched the blonde intently, waiting for him to make a move. Naruto himself stood completely still, hand still in his pockets, the board look not even leaving his face. Deciding to test the Hyuga out, Naruto shot forward before jumping and delivering a spinning heel kick towards the Hyuga's head. Neji blocked it easily and pushed it back before sending a palm thrust at the blonde. Naruto, seeing this, grabbed the boy's arm before flipping himself over it, landing in a crouched position. Moving quickly, the blonde brought his left arm forward, kunai in hand, swinging towards the Hyuga's stomach. Neji, seeing this, jumped back to gain some distance before taking his stance. Naruto stood to his feet before turning to the Hyuga, the semi-bored look still on his face. The blonde simply looked at the Hyuga for a moment before speaking, breaking the silence. "That was a nice warm-up, but you should forfeit, you can't beat me," spoke the blonde, shocking many. Neji himself was livid. This dope, the dead last of his class, was talking down on him, telling him to forfeit. He was a Hyuga, a member of the strongest clan in Konoha. Calming himself, he also spoke, not moving from his stance. "Fate has already declared me the winner, so why would I forfeit?" was the Hyuga's response. "There is no such thing as fate. Only cowards, weaklings and fools would believe in such a thing. You of course are all three of these," said Naruto in return, his hands coming out of his pockets. Neji's eyes narrowed and his body tensed hearing this. Naruto, seeing this, inwardly smirked. Now he would go for the kill. "I mean, why else would you have to try to mentally break someone before fighting, other than being either a coward or a weakling?" finished the blonde. Neji, hearing this, launched himself forward, rage in his eyes, causing Naruto to inwardly grin at his plan working. Neji rushed forward, sending a palm strike out at the blonde. Naruto, seeing it coming, simply sidestepped, avoiding it completely. Neji, however, kept pushing the attack, his hands moving as blurs. Naruto, however, simply kept dodging around the attacks. Naruto was inwardly grinning, he could keep this up all day. Neji, on the other hand, he knew couldn't last like this too long. No one could win against him when it came to stamina anyway. Especially when the attacks were as sloppy as this. Jumping back, he saw the Hyuga come to a stop and smirked. "Don't tell me this is all the great Hyuga Neji can do," spoke the blonde, smirk not leaving his face. Stance. Most people watching the match were in shock. In the beginning, many had thought the Uzumaki was crazy, rushing at the Hyuga head on. The older shinobi in the arena who had heard of the Uzumaki's skill in the past were impressed. Especially since the blonde hadn't shown any of his skill in years, except when pulling pranks. The ones who had written the rumors off, however, were seeing that they held more truth than they believed. The two examiners were impressed with the blonde. They, like everyone else that didn't know the blonde and some that did, had assumed he was an idiot. What they saw, however, was completely different. Like most Leaf Nin, they knew the Hyuga clan was obsessed with fate, they were just surprised the blonde had used that to his advantage. The Ashi was also surprised with this turn of events. He couldn't believe it took that little effort to make Neji lose his temper. He could also see the angrier the boy became, the sloppier his movements became. He had to give Naruto some credit, the boy had done his homework. Even still, he was surprised by how the blonde was taunting the boy. But then again, considering the extent of Hinata's injuries, he shouldn't have been. Especially considering how close the two were. He quickly shook himself from his thoughts before focusing back on the fight. Arena. Naruto observed the Hyuga boy quietly as he panted. After a moment, the smirk left his face before the bored look returned. Neji scowled, seeing the look on the blonde's face before dashing forward once again. He approached quickly once more, aiming a palm thrust. Naruto, seeing it coming, waiting until the last second before catching the boy's wrist with his left hand and delivering a punch to the Hyuga's jaw with the right. Neji staggered back from the blow and looked up just in time to catch an elbow to the face. Naruto watched him stagger back for a moment and shook his head. Neji spat out some blood before forcing himself to calm down. Figuring out his anger was clouding his judgment, the Hyuga took a few deep breaths before settling back into his stance. Naruto, seeing this, grinned before speaking. "Well, looks like you're ready to get serious. In that case, so will I," finished the blonde. But that said, the blonde removed the trench coat before taking it in his right hand and tossing it aside. Once that was done, the blonde's hands formed a few quick seals before he called out Kaiten. Gakakyu no Jutsu, fire release. Grand fireball technique, sending a fireball towards the Hyuga. Neji dodged to the side and looked just in time to see a kunai heading towards him. He paled, however, when the single kunai turning to 50. It was at that moment chakra surrounded the Hyuga before he started to spin, calling out Hakashu Kaiten, divination whirl. The chakra formed a shield around the Hyuga which deflected each of the kunai. Stance. The Ashi, Hinata and Hanabi were each in shock seeing the move Neji did. The Kaiten was a Hyuga clan technique reserved for main house members. As such, they knew no one would teach it to Neji, which meant he learned it on his own. Such talent wasted on the branch house, thought Hiashi with a scowl. Arena. Naruto was not happy at the moment. Having known about the Kaiten himself, he was also shocked seeing Neji pull it off. Neji, seeing this, had taken advantage of this and used that time to close off the blonde's Tenketsu. The results of this were Naruto ending up on his back, not able to use any chakra. Staggering to his feet, the blonde glared at the Hyuga boy fiercely. "You're gonna pay for that," snarled the blonde. "Oh, and what are you going to do?" "I've closed of your tenketsu, meaning you can no longer use any chakra to fight," said the Hyuga looking at the blonde coldly. "Like I care. I told you before you had an ass kicking coming," said the blonde. "Besides, I don't need chakra to handle someone like you. You're nothing but a coward, living in the past and blaming others, and fate for your problems," finished the blonde. "What would someone like you know," said Niji. With it he launched into his rant about the Hyuga's so-called fate of hatred, Hinata's kidnapping, and his father's death. At the end of his rant he finally noticed Naruto staring at him in boredom once again. "Is that all?" questioned the blonde in boredom. "If that's so, then it's nothing I haven't heard before. I've lived my life on my own, without any aid from anyone except the old man all my life, so don't expect any pity from me," he finished coldly. Niji said nothing before launching himself forward towards the blonde. Striking out with a palm thrust, he was surprised to hit nothing but air. His surprise cost him, however, as he was hit with an elbow to the back of his head, making him stumble forward. Turning around, the Hyuga saw Naruto standing casually, back still turned to him. "Did you know," Niji spoke the blonde while turning, "that the human body can use more than just chakra?" finished the blonde. Stands. Itsugaya was in the stands watching the match by all the rookies and Tenten who didn't make it to the tournament. He had actually been rather bored with the match, having known Naruto was still playing around, though he was surprised at the techniques the two used. He was even more surprised when the Hyuga boy managed to cut Naruto off from his chakra. However, he couldn't hold back his smirk when he noticed Naruto's Ryatsu was starting to be released. "Well, you're finally getting serious, Naruto. Now I can see what you're made of," thought the 10th division captain. "This is going to be good," he spoke up, causing quite a few people to glance at him. "Arena, as you know, chakra is made out of a combination of spiritual and physical energy. Some people like Lee can only use one, these, his being physical energy. I, however, am different since I can use my spirit energy separately. As I said, I don't need chakra to beat the shit out of someone like you," finished the blonde before a blue aura surrounded him. But that the blonde blurred forward before burying his fist into the Hyuga's stomach, causing him to lurch forward. Naruto wasted no time before grabbing his hair and bashing the boy's face into his knee. Releasing the hold, he watched as the Hyuga staggered backwards. Looking up with his Byakugan now activated, the Hyuga locked eyes with the slit blue ones of the Uzumaki. Naruto flexed his hands before they turned to claws, and he blurred forward. Niji felt the claws before he even saw them. Then the blonde appeared behind him, one of his hands bloody, and Niji fell backwards with 4 slash marks showing on his chest. How the Hyuga gasped out. "Simple, you were so confident you'd already won. All I had to do was let you keep yapping. Well, I released my spirit energy, which I knew you could neither see or sense." He paused, then continued. "You should thank Hinata. Had she not convinced me, I'd have probably beaten you two within an inch of your life. Why she cares so much for you after what you did to her, I'll probably never understand," finished the blonde before Niji passed out. Genma, seeing this, smirked around his senbon before calling out, "Shousa Uzumaki Naruto." There was a shocked silence in the arena before everyone started to cheer loudly for seeing a good fight. Naruto paid this no attention and simply put his coat back on before heading to the stands as the medics took care of Niji. Stands. The rookies, with the exception of Hinata and Ino, were shocked. Having no idea Naruto was that good. Akamaru was now whimpering in Kiba's jacket, while Kiba himself was still in shock. All of them, with the exception of Sakura, who was still in denial, knew Naruto was no dope. The two examiners were both impressed with the blonde's performance. Naruto just might receive the promotion to Chunin himself. The Ashi had taken this time and slipped out of the stands, making his way towards the infirmary. He had to admit that Naruto was far more than he led people to believe. Shaking such thoughts and saving them for another time, he made his way towards the infirmary. It was time Niji learned the truth. Genma sighed. It was time for the Uchiha's match, and he still wasn't here. He shrugged. Sandaime had told everyone at the meeting this morning what would happen if the Uchiha wasn't here in time for his match. Due to the absence of Uchiha Sasuke, the winner by forfeit is Sabaku no Gaara, finished the senbon chewing Jounin. Gaara, hearing this, disappeared in a whirl of sand back into the stands. He called for the next match only for Kankuro to forfeit. Hearing this, he called for the next one, Shikamaru vs Temari. Originally Shikamaru was supposed to fight Dosu from Odo, but got Temari due to Dosu's death during the 1-month break. Shikamaru, not wanting to fight another girl, also was about to give up before he was pushed over the edge by Naruto. He muttered something about blondes being troublesome. That match had been a long one. Both genins had been using their brains a lot during the fight. In the end, Shikamaru had managed to catch Temari in his cage main no jutsu, but still had to forfeit due to lack of chakra. After a 15-minute break, Genma called for the next match, which was Naruto and Gaara. Neither said anything as they stood glaring at each other. Suddenly Kakashi and Sasuke appeared in a whirl of leaves, though neither vessel moved their gaze towards them. Kakashi spoke, Genma catching both of their attention. "Get off the field, the Uchiha was already disqualified since he didn't show up for his match," finished Genma. Kakashi himself was shocked. He was sure that Sandaime would overlook it since it was Sasuke, the last Uchiha. He was broken from his thoughts hearing Sasuke's protest. "You can't disqualify me for something like being late, I'm an Uchiha, such things don't apply to me," said the black-haired boy. "The rules apply to everyone, now get off my field, you're interrupting a match," said Genma. Sasuke looked over and seeing it was Naruto, and Gaara rushed at the blonde in a rage. He didn't get far however as he was knocked unconscious. Jiraiya, who had knocked the boy out, threw him to Kakashi before speaking. "Keep your student on a leash, Kakashi. I won't have him attacking my apprentice again," said the Sannin before he disappeared back to the cage booth. Once Kakashi was gone with the Uchiha, Genma started the match and jumped back as far as he could. Neither boy had heard any of the commotion as they had glared at each other the whole time. Suddenly killing intent was released from Gaara, causing the blonde to release his own. Both boys' chakra levels started rising, passing over Jounin level. Suddenly Naruto rushed forward, throwing a few shuriken ahead of him only for the sand to intercept them. Seeing this, Naruto jumped back before creating 4 clones of himself. Each of the clones appeared on a different side of Gaara. Seeing this, the red-headed Sunanin made a ball of sand which surrounded him before creating an eye of sand so he could view things on the outside. The clones, seeing this, each pulled out a kunai before launching them at the sphere. They each performed a few seals before calling out Kage Kunai no Jutsu. The 4 kunai multiplied to 80 before they each crashed up against the sphere, though they did no damage. The real Naruto meanwhile started on a chain of seals for the last jutsu he had gotten out of the Forbidden Scroll. Stopping on the last seal, one which surprised Kakashi and the Hokage, the blonde called out Raiten. Ryuiden no Jutsu, lightning release. Lightning dragon technique. The sky darkened a bit as a single bolt of lightning shot down before changing shape into a dragon and charging towards the Sunanin. As always, Gaara's sand rose up to protect him, but his eyes went wide when the dragon blew right through the sand shield and slammed into him. There was an explosion that rocked the arena and kicked dust into the air. When the dust died down, Gaara was shown getting back onto his feet with his right arm bleeding. This of course enraged the Sunagenin as it was the first time he'd ever bled. In response to his rage, his gourd burst open before turning into sand and covering his right arm. However, before they could continue, another explosion rocked the place, this time coming from the village. Looking over, Naruto saw a smoke bomb go off and the Kazekage dragging Sandaime up to the roof. Not long after, he noticed the place begin to flood with both Odo and Suna shinobis. He was snapped out of his thoughts however when he felt himself lifted and thrown into the wall of the arena. Climbing to his feet, Naruto glared over at Gaara, his eyes now blood red with red chakra pouring out of his body. Gaara stood where he was, his body now covered in sand with the exception of his feet, making him look like a mini Shukaku. Gaara launched shuriken made of sand at the blonde, who made a few seals in response before speaking Hari Jizo, Needle Guardian. The blonde's hair grew long before circling around him and forming spikes, stopping the attack. Once the attack was over, the blonde released the jutsu before charging towards the Sunagen Shuriki. Quickly grabbing a kunai and slapping on an explosive note, Naruto charged the redhead before jumping and flipping over him, throwing the kunai right at his ass. Gaara in response quickly turned at backhanded the boy in the back of the head, sending him flying forwards. Naruto however was grinning and while flying said one word: boom. The tag exploded, catching everyone, especially Gaara, by surprise. When the smoke cleared, it showed Gaara, while still standing, was badly damaged, which you could tell from the sand falling off of him. He looked just in time to catch a kick to the face that launched him into the air before he received a few more while in the air, followed by a hell to the head with a cry of Naruto Renden before being sent to the ground and creating a crater. Jiraiya was not happy right now. He had known about Orochimaru's planned invasion, so that didn't bother him. He had even left a Kage Bunshin in the village to deal with the summoned snakes that he knew would come. What pissed him off however was that he had no idea Orochimaru had actually finished that rival jutsu. So now here he was facing off against a Nidaime Hokage while Sarutobi took care of the Shodaime. Orochimaru however was simply standing there watching with that same sick grin on his face. Dodging another water dragon, the toad hermit sighed to himself. This is gonna be a long day. Kakashi, Guy, Asuma and Kurone were taking out invading shinobi quickly. They were easily showing why they were elite jounin. Guy and Kakashi were currently engaged in a game of who's the better killer. Guy was winning with 20 kills to Kakashi's 19. Asuma and Kurone however were simply picking their opponents apart with Kurone's genjutsus and Asuma's trench knives. It didn't take long for the members of both teams 8 and 10 to get into the act. Each team using the teamwork they developed to take out opponents. Sasuke was also getting into the act, sending shuriken kunai of fireballs at his opponent. Sakura however just took a defensive stance in front of Lee since she was basically useless. Everything was stopped however when there was a large cloud of smoke that covered the entire arena. When it cleared, everyone saw the gigantic form of Suna no Shukaku. Naruto cursed as soon as he saw it, knowing there wasn't enough room for him to summon Gamabunta here as well. Soon there was another large cloud of smoke that cleared, showing Narutos all over the arena. Each of the Narutos grabbed a kunai before slapping an explosive note onto it before tossing it at the sand demon. Haju Kage Kunai no Jutsu, Mass Shadow Kunai technique, came the shout from all the Narutos. Each of the kunais multiplied while flying at the stationary form of the sand demon. The kunais all hit before there was a massive explosion that shook the entire arena. When the smoke cleared, the sight that the blonde saw wasn't what he hoped to see. Instead of seeing the sand falling down, the form of Shukaku still stood where it was without a scratch, its eyes glowing. Gaara himself was above the beast, head waist deep in sand, slumped over. The beast roared before screaming about finally being out. It was then that it turned, facing Naruto with one palm out in front of it. Sand started to curl around the blonde before covering him completely. The sand slowly started to compress on the blonde as he struggled to free himself, seeing it proving useless. The blonde closed his eyes tightly, knowing what was coming. The last thing he heard was a cry of Naruto-kun. The rookies and Team Guy had both finished off the last of their opponents. Niji, who had joined up with his team, had proved to be a big help, especially with the soldier pills he brought. The Jounin were just running over when they heard Hinata cry out, turning their gaze. They each saw what made her scream, seeing what was happening to her crush. Mindscape. Naruto opened his eyes, finding himself once again in his mindscape. Only this time everything was shaking like it was falling apart. It was then that he felt it, the same power he felt the first time he came here. Following the feeling, he continued to walk until he came to the same room where he had first learned about the seal. Walking into the room, he immediately noticed something different about it. Said something would be the right wall was missing and a set of stairs was in its place. Shrugging, the blonde walked down the stairs and was surprised at what he saw when he reached the bottom. He was now standing atop of the Hokage monument, only overlooking Konoha. He soon noticed that this place was also shaking and falling apart. "What the hell's going on?" muttered the blonde. He was snapped from his thoughts when the ground shook again, this time hard enough to make him fall on his ass. Getting up, he looked around and seeing everything falling around him, knew he didn't have time to search this place physically. Deciding to use his senses, he closed his eyes while searching for the power he felt. Once he found it, he snapped his eyes open and was surprised when he found ribbons floating all around him. All but one of them were white while that one was red. Naruto's hand instinctively grabbed the red one before pulling on it. A red box was pulled over to him before it opened, showing the hilt of a sword. The blonde took a breath before grabbing it and pulling. Real world. Both Hinata and, surprisingly to everyone, Ino had hit the ground upon seeing what happened. Hinata herself was openly sobbing, knowing what happens to people who end up caught in Gaara's sand. Everyone watched horrified, except Sakura, at what was happening, too shocked to even move. Shukaku was still laughing while slowly compressing the sand tighter. It stopped, however, when a golden glow came out of it and it exploded outward. A golden light shot out of the sand into the air, where it divided in two before one part came down in front of the beast. Once it touched down, there was an explosion that kicked up dust. Once everything cleared, a single figure could be seen. The figure wore a black kimono, a black hakama with a white sash around his waist, along with a sheath for a sword. In his right hand he held a sword that was as long as he was tall. Other than that, it looked like a normal katana. The hilt itself was midnight blue with diamonds designed in it. The guard, like most katana, was rectangular in shape. He had blonde hair and a pair of slitted red eyes. He blinked and his eyes were blue in color. It was his eyes that could identify him to some as Uzumaki Naruto. Shukaku got a good look at him, then the sword, and took a step back. "SS Shinigami," stuttered the demon Tanuki. Naruto said nothing before he seemingly disappeared. The blonde reappeared behind the demon, holding his sword over his shoulder. Once the blonde turned his head, the beast's left arm fell off, turning into sand. "I'd suggest you get back in your cell, Tanuki, and leave the boy alone," spoke the blonde impassively. Shukaku, for once in his life, did what the smart thing and dissolved his form. Gaara's form was quickly snatched out of the air before he could even hit the sand. The Sunanin, seeing this, took one look at the blonde before they turned and ran as fast as they could towards Suna. Just then Temari and Kankuro landed before them. Naruto looked at them for a second before turning away. Both Sunanin let out the breath they were holding when he did. They did not want to mess with anyone who could scare Shukaku back into his cage. They wasted no time picking up Gaara and dashed off. Naruto, seeing this, turned his gaze and upon seeing the group coming let out his breath. Once he did, he was in his regular clothes once more with the sword now sheathed and strapped to his back. He took one look at Hinata and passed out into blissful unconsciousness. Itsugaya was surprised and impressed. Surprised by the amount of Ryatsu Naruto had as well as his transformation. What impressed him was that the boy handled his Zanpakuto as if he'd had it his entire life. He smirked to himself at that the kid was interesting. Clearing his thoughts, he sighed before and after taking a deep breath changed into his Shinigami form. He was glad that Freak Mayuri found a way for them to travel without those damn Gigais. He always hated those things, especially since he always had to take those Gagongans just to get out of it. Shaking his head from his thoughts and using Shunpo, Flash Step, he disappeared to make his report. Chapter 7. Search for Tsunade. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto or Bleach, and firstly, as always, I have to thank everyone who reviewed. About the Kage Kunai no Jutsu, I use that because that's all I've ever seen it referred to as. Now there is Shuriken Kage Bunshin, which is used in the manga and is posted on Wikipedia. However, there is no mention of Kage Kunai anything, so I stuck with it. As far as the abilities of Naruto Zanpakuto, I'm still trying to figure out abilities for it, though you guys are more than welcome to submit any ideas you might have for it. However, just know that it will be nothing like Ichigo's. The pairing for this fic, as stated earlier, is indeed a harem. Now I know I've put a lot of focus on Hinata, but that's just because Naruto's known her the longest. However, as seen in last chapter, I'm trying to work Ino in now. Now it has been brought to my attention that I've been doing a bit of bashing on both Sakura and Sasuke. I don't necessarily call it bashing, I prefer to say I'm speaking the truth. It is well known that Sakura was pretty much useless in the first half of the manga and was really only interested in Sasuke. Sasuke was simply an emo and a little unstable mentally. So with that mindset, I figured, hey, why not show how Naruto sees the members of Team 7. They definitely are always speaking on his negatives and never his positives. Also, I know canon Naruto is a bit annoying at times, but you have to remember that he's been neglected all his life and craves for his existence to be acknowledged. Now I also agree with another of my reviewers who mentioned how part 2 started out with Sakura becoming one of the strongest while Naruto was still basically the same as before he left. I especially don't like how they've got Naruto acting now that he's back. Sasuke stuck a Chidori through his chest and he still wants to bring his ass back, not to mention they had him crying because of it. That was just so wrong. Anyway, I'm done ranting for now. There might be another one in the next chapter goes, as I like hearing the thoughts you guys have about the manga. Anyway, without further ado, here's what you came here for. Start now. Once again, the captains of the Gate 13 were gathered, only now 2 more of them were in attendance. Both of which wore the normal Shinigami outfit as well as the white Haori that captains wore. After briefing the 2, Yamamoto motioned for Hitsugaya Toshiro to give his report. The white-haired captain gave his report, including everything that he had learned while he was there. He even included the fight between Naruto and Shukaku and the blonde's transformation. At the end of his report, he stepped back into his place in line and Yamamoto once again spoke up. "Tell me, what was the child's name again?" "Hitsugaya Taicho," said the old man. "Uzumaki Naruto, sir," responded Toshiro, earning a small smile from the old man. "So he is still alive," spoke the old man to himself before turning his attention back to the white-haired boy. "Hitsugaya Taicho, I want you to return and watch over the boy and take Momofuku Taicho with you," said Yamamoto. But that he dismissed everyone save one person. Once they were alone, the old man sighed before speaking. While this was going on, the Gate 13's shortest captain made his way over to the 5th Division headquarters. It was easy for him to find the person he was looking for, as they'd known each other even before they became Shinigami. Once he found her, he quickly briefed her on their mission, and with that the 2 were gone. Konoha. It was a sad day in the Hidden Leaf village. Everyone in the village was currently gathered for the Sandame Sarutobi's funeral service. The funeral service was actually for all who died that day, but Naruto really only cared for his Aji-san, nobody else mattered to him. The Rookie 9 and Team Guy all stood together, though some stood with their parents or clan. Regardless, they all stood in the same section as well as their respective senseis. Naruto himself stood in front of the group between Jiraiya and Iruka, who was tending to the crying Konohamaru. After a while, everyone walked up and placed a white flower in front of the Sandame's picture. Soon after that, the funeral was over and everyone was leaving. The rookies had taken that time to try and talk to Naruto, only to find him already gone. Naruto made it back to his apartment in no time and plopped down on the bed. He really wasn't feeling well right now. In fact, he hadn't been feeling good all week. This for him was strange, as he'd never been sick in his life. It was even weirder as even Kyuubi didn't know what was going on. He sighed quietly before closing his eyes and entering a dreamless sleep. An hour later, Jiraiya entered the room in a poof of smoke. As soon as the smoke cleared, Naruto was already up and moving to get dressed. Jiraiya took this moment to look over the blonde's new sword. It was exactly 60 inches, 5 feet in length and 1 3/8 inches wide. It had a silver blade which gleamed in the light. The guard was rectangular in shape and gold in color, while the hilt was blue with a diamond pattern running up it, which was also golden in color. Once Naruto was dressed, he took the sword belt, which was also blue, and fixed it so his sword was on his back. As soon as that was done, Jiraiya grabbed him and they disappeared in a poof of smoke. Not long after that, they arrived at the north gate and walked right out. But Sasuke was not a happy person. He hadn't been happy in years, but right now he was beyond pissed. First, he had waited for 2 hours for Kakashi to show up to a meeting he called. During said time, he had to put up with Sakura's pathetic attempts to date him. If that wasn't bad enough, when Kakashi had finally shown up, it was only to tell them that Naruto was no longer on the team. He went on to say he'd been taken as an apprentice to one of the legendary 3. That right there had pissed him off, but not half as much as what Kakashi said next. Since this team is short a member, it's been put on the reserves. You can train all you want but no missions for a while. Once he had said that the copy ninja disappeared before they could say anything. Sasuke scowled before stalking off towards Kakashi's apartment to find out what the hell was going on. With Naruto and Jiraiya, they had been walking for a while in a serene silence. Jiraiya had explained that they were looking for Tsunade. Though he didn't explain why Naruto didn't really care, he just wanted to meet this famous aunt of his. Jiraiya then told the blonde some of the things he knew about her to the curious blonde. Naruto himself had a small smile on his face. It felt good not having to act like an idiot all the time. He had spoken to Kyuubi and found out about that transformation. He'd had at least as much as she knew. All she knew was that he'd turned into a Shinigami and he'd been able to keep his sword, nose and Pakuto, he corrected, because he had enough Ryatsu flowing through him for it to stay with him. She had no idea how the blonde got the power, though she theorized that he got it when she had been sealed inside him by one of the Shinigami. Said vixen was currently resting around the blonde's neck in the form of a small one-tailed kid. The blonde shinobi was broken from his thoughts by Jiraiya, who spoke up. "Alright Gaki, it's time you learned a new jutsu." Naruto's attention immediately snapped towards Jiraiya. It's an A-ranked offensive jutsu called Rasengan. It was one of Yondame's signature moves and took him 3 years to create. Finish the Toad Hermit. Naruto's face lit up hearing this, as Jiraiya had only taught him a few defensive jutsus. Besides that, the only offensive jutsus he had were the lightning attack and the cage bunshin jutsus he'd gotten from the Forbidden Scroll. Jiraiya then proceeded to demonstrate how the attack was formed before tossing the boy a water balloon. He then proceeded to explain the first step of the jutsu. Once done with his explanations, they continued on towards the next town. Konoha. Sasuke had finally gotten to Kakashi's apartment building after an encounter with a few 20 fangirls. Upon entering, however, he was surprised to see Kurane, Asuma, and Guy in there with Kakashi laid out on the bed. "What happened?" asked the Uchiha. Before anyone could speak, the door was thrown open and a brown-haired glasses-wearing Jounin entered. "Is it true? Did Itachi really return, and is he really after Naruto?" said the Jounin as he entered, but froze seeing Sasuke there. "Idiot," said Asuma quietly. Before anyone could react, Sasuke spun around and pushed past the Jounin, rushing out the door. After looking all around town, the Uchiha sped towards the gates. After finding some things out from the Chunin at the gate, he shot out himself in the direction Naruto was said to have traveled. With Naruto, our favorite blonde shinobi was currently laid face down on his bed in an inn. He had already mastered stage 1 of the Rasengan and could now pop the balloon in a matter of seconds with one hand. He was currently working on the second stage, this one involving rubber balls. He quickly shook thoughts of training from his head, burying himself deeper into his pillow. Jiraiya had left as soon as some girl winked at him, though he had at least given the blonde the keys to the room. Kyuubi was currently in her humanoid form sitting next to the blonde with a frown on her face. As soon as they had gotten into the room, Naruto had run straight to the bathroom and thrown up. The weird thing is that he had thrown up water after that. He had gotten right on top of the bed and hadn't moved since. To top that off, she still couldn't find anything wrong with him, no matter how hard she looked. She was broken from her thoughts when there was a knock at the door. Naruto groaned into his pillow at the sound but didn't move. Kyuubi looked at him for a moment, silently asking why. "Hiro-sensei has a key, don't worry about it," Kyu-chan muttered the blonde when he felt her gaze on him. Kyuubi blushed at the name but did as he said and leaned back on the bed to lie beside him. Again there was a knock at the door, which repeated 2 more times until the blonde finally relented and got up, moving towards the door. Naruto grumbled the entire way towards the door before opening it. "This had better be good, I was trying to sleep," said the blonde while pulling the door open. When it opened completely, he was greeted to the sight of 2 men in black cloaks with red clouds on them. Correction, make that 1 man and a fish. The fish-like man was the taller of the 2. He had blue skin and what looked like gills on his face. The second was the one who caught his attention, however. He had black hair tied in a ponytail and a pair of blood-red fully developed Sharingan eyes. "An Uchiha," muttered the blonde, surprised. "Uzumaki Naruto," said the Uchiha, "you will come with us." Naruto snorted, hearing that this guy obviously didn't get the memo because Uzumaki Naruto takes orders from no one anymore. He thought the last bit sadly. Itachi, came the screaming voice of one Uchiha, Sasuke. Sasuke wasted no time and rushed forward with a Chidori. The young Uchiha ran at the older one with the Chidori tearing at the wall. The man, now identified as Itachi, watched the boy come impassively. Then at the last moment he grabbed the boy's arm before slamming it into a wall where the boy's wrist was quickly broken. The older Uchiha then proceeded to deliver a knee to the younger boy's gut, followed by a quick jab to the boy's jaw, making him stagger back into a wall. Seeing this, the older Uchiha grabbed the younger one by the throat before speaking quietly enough for only him to hear. "Why are you still so weak, Sasuke? You still don't have enough, you still lack hatred," said Itachi. But that said, Itachi's Sharingan spun before changing, forming shuriken-shaped design. Once that was done, he looked directly in Sasuke's eyes and the young Uchiha felt the world change. Mindscape. Opening his eyes, he knew where he was, the world of Tsukuyomi, which was confirmed by the red moon in the sky. For the next 72 hours you will watch that event again, came Itachi's voice from all around. And so it again. Sasuke watched as the Uchiha massacre occurred, Itachi killing any who crossed his path. He then was forced to watch as Itachi killed his own parents. After what felt like hours it was over and Itachi's voice echoed once more. 71 hours, 59 minutes and 50 seconds to go. Hearing this, the young Uchiha did the only thing he could do, he screamed. Real world. Naruto was shocked when Sasuke suddenly slumped to the ground unconscious. Itachi then turned his gaze to the blonde as did his partner. Before anything could happen however, Jiraiya appeared with a woman slung over his shoulder with a yellow armored toad that hopped in front of the blonde genin. After talking for a bit it was discovered that Itachi and his partner Kisame were from an organization called Akatsuki that was after Naruto. Once Jiraiya heard enough he summoned up the stomach of a fire toad, aiming to kill the two Akatsuki members. Itachi and Kisame had other plans however, as they both dashed around the corner. A few seconds later an explosion could be heard causing both Jiraiya and Naruto to dash in that direction. Once they reached they found part of the wall blown apart with black fire covering it. "Don't touch it," spoke Jiraiya before the blonde even moved. He then quickly pulled out a scroll before sealing the fire away into it. It was at that point that a scream of dynamic entry could be heard and Guy appeared in a flying kick that connected with Jiraiya's face. After this Guy frantically began apologizing, stating that he had used his Hidite as a mirror and misjudged Jiraiya as an enemy. It was stopped however as Naruto shot past both of them back to the room, with both following behind him after exchanging glimpses. When they arrived to the room they found Naruto in the bathroom retching up water in the toilet. They also noticed the red-haired girl that was rubbing the boy's back, though only Jiraiya knew who she was. Once he was done he got up and washed his face before quietly heading back towards the bed. Jiraiya took this time to instruct Guy on what to do about Sasuke, as well as finding out about the attack in Konoha. Once they were done Guy picked up the unconscious Uchiha and was off in a blur. Jiraiya then told Naruto to pack up and that they were leaving before the manager billed them for the mess. They had packed up quick basically because nobody ever unpacked. Kyuubi however, knowing Naruto wasn't feeling well, decided to speak up. "Naruto-kun," she spoke, catching his attention. "I think now would be a good time for you to test out the Kitsune summon," she said, getting a nod from the boy. Naruto simply rolled up a sleeve on his shirt, exposing a kanji tattoo for Kitsune. This was another little gift given to him by Kyuubi when she broke the suppression seal, though she hadn't activated it or even mentioned it until after the Chunin exam was over with. Using his sharper than average canines the boy bit into his thumb and focusing chakra into the tattoo, ran the blood over it. There was a poof of smoke which cleared to show a red three-tailed kitsune that was as big as one of the Inuzuka clan's dogs. "Kyuubi Haim," came the shocked feminine voice of the kitsune, her eyes wide. Kyuubi smiled at her before speaking. "How are you, Taka?" said Kyuubi. "I'm fine. What about you? Everyone's been worried sick since you disappeared, and let's not even mention how your father's been," said Taka. Kyuubi laughed sheepishly, seeing the looks Naruto and Jiraiya were sending at her. "Kyuubi Haim," repeated Naruto slowly as if asking for clarification. "What I said I'd explain sooner or later," said Kyuubi. "Well, it will have to wait until later," said Jiraiya, snapping from his stupor. "We seriously need to leave. I'm not paying for that wall." But that said, they were gone well after Kyuubi went back into her kid form and curled around Naruto's neck again. Naruto himself had chosen to ride on Taka's back as he still wasn't feeling too good. Said Vixen smirked foxily at Kyuubi, who was happy she had red fur to hide her blush. Konoha. While Naruto and Sasuke weren't around, the rest of the Rookie 9 and Team Guy had met up at Ichiraku's. Their topic of course was the change in our favorite blonde shinobi. While everyone else was talking, Hinata had stayed quiet. Most didn't pay it any mind since she was always quiet. However, Niji, Shino and Shikamaru, who were the most observant of the group, had noticed that instead of looking anywhere but at them, Hinata was watching all of them intently. "I still can't believe how much he changed in just a month, but somehow he seems more real," said Kiba, earning a chuckle from the stand's owner. Seeing them looking, he explained. "Naruto doesn't get any more real than how he's acting now," said the old man. "What do you mean?" asked Sakura curiously. The old man looked at the group for a moment before nodding to himself. "Most of you have probably had your parents tell you to stay away from him in the past, right?" said the old man, getting nods from all but Tenten and Lee, though Hinata only did it to not stick out. "Most of your parents are shinobi too as well, right?" This time the ones who didn't nod included Sakura. "Well, to put it simply, it's because kids talk too much," said the old man before explaining. "Unlike you guys, Naruto didn't have anybody while he was growing up and had to do everything on his own. Several people had tried to pick on him or hurt him as a result, knowing that he didn't have anyone. Lots of times Naruto would end up in the hospital, but he would always make sure he wasn't the only one going." He paused, then continued. "As a result, he became someone who didn't play around much and wouldn't hesitate to hurt those who would try to hurt him. Children, however, seem to say and do stupid things a lot of the time. Because of this you were told to stay away from him, as it was well known how Naruto was finished." The old man. "Wait, I don't get it," said Sakura. If that's the case, would he act like he did during the academy? That was originally only a game he thought up. However, he quickly saw the usefulness in acting like that. After all, shinobis are masters of deception, which is something he excels at, explained the old man. Brilliant, said Shikamaru, catching on seeing everyone looking. He explained. Think about it, Naruto has been acting weak and dumb for years, which is the exact opposite of what he is. With him doing that, it takes the spotlight off of him and puts it on someone else. He paused here for a breath, then continued. Not only that, but he purposely held back in the academy, making everyone think he's weak. The end result is what happened to Neji. TCH troublesome blonde, finished the Nara, mumbling at the end. With Naruto. A few days later, the group of three, Taka went bye-bye, had arrived in what appeared to be a gambling town. Both Naruto and Kyuubi stiffened when the scent of snakes hit them. Naruto, who was now feeling a little better, quickly told Jiraiya, and they took off towards the source. When they arrived, the scene that greeted them left Naruto stunned. The place looked like a battle zone. The castle that once stood was now nothing but rubble. There was also a sizable hole in the cement wall off to the side. Naruto cocked his head to the side in confusion as another scent hit him. What is it? asked Jiraiya. The Budo scent is here along with Orochimaru's and two others, one of which I'm assuming is Tsunade's, said the vessel. After he said that, both he and Kyuubi, who was still in her kid form, stiffened. Then Kyuubi disappeared in a poof of smoke. Naruto sighed at that, mad that the time was up, as he could only keep her out for 3 hours at a time now. After that, he had to wait another 2 hours to call her back out. Well, it's better than the 10 minutes we started with, thought the blonde. After tracking the scent for a bit, they came across a bar. Entering, Jiraiya took a look around and smirked. Tsunade called Jiraiya to his former teammate. When he said that, she looked up shocked. Jiraiya. What is my past coming to haunt me now? asked Tsunade. Jiraiya said nothing as he and Naruto sat inside the both Tsunade and her assistant were seated in. Naruto looked them both over, while Jiraiya engaged Tsunade in conversation. Tsunade noticed looked like she was in her mid-20s, she wore gray pants and a gray shirt with a green jacket over it. He also noticed something else about her that any straight man would. She has bigger tits than Kyu-chan, thought the blonde before shaking his head to clear that thought. And just in case you're wondering, Kyuubi's tits are as big as Tamari's. Looking to the one in front of him, he saw she had short black hair and black eyes. She wore dark blue pants and a dark blue shirt. After looking her over a bit more, he tuned into the conversation between Jiraiya and Tsunade. After listening to their conversation for a while, the younger blonde spoke up. Pathetic, he said it quietly but caught everyone's attention. I can't believe we came all this way for this sad excuse of a kunoichi, said Naruto, shocking everyone. What did you say, brat? said Tsunade, glaring at the boy. I said you're pathetic. I can't believe Aji-san spoke so highly of you. Tsunade, the greatest medic nin to ever live, a woman who could heal any wound and cure any illness, but has the strength of a demon, said Naruto before he snorted. The Iniro-sensei had me all worked up to meet you, and this is what I see. The great Tsunade wallowing in self-pity and disrespecting the man that thought of her as a daughter. When he said this, Tsunade's head bowed a little. I've heard about your loss from Aji-san, but you had it good compared to me. And while I can't say I care for the villagers, I can at least say I still care for the village itself, spoke the blonde before getting up and putting his sword back on his back. Sensei, I'm going to head back to the room and maybe train some later, said the blonde, getting a nod from Jiraiya before he turned to leave. Oh, and Tsunade, called Naruto, turning back to face the group. You know that Team Orochimaru killed Sarutobi Ajayasen. If I find out you're helping him, I'll kill you even if you are my aunt, said the blonde before he turned and left. Both Tsunade and Shizune sat shocked at what the boy had just said. After snapping out of their stupor, both turned to Jiraiya, who was calmly drinking his sake. Who was that? asked Tsunade. My apprentice Senju, Naruto answered Jiraiya, stressing the clan name. Tsunade's eyes went wide hearing this. He is also the one Yondaime chose, spoke Jiraiya, this time catching both women by surprise. Next morning, Naruto awoke feeling a bit better. After stretching a bit and doing his morning routine, he quickly got dressed. Leaving the trench coat off, he headed out to train. Arriving in a clearing, he did a few warm-ups before starting his training. Knowing he had to make up for lost time, he quickly created a few clones. After they appeared, he smirked before each. Naruto started on trying to master the Rasengan. He was still at it when Tsunade arrived a few hours later. Looking around, she whistled, seeing the damage done to the clearing as it was full of craters. Looking over towards him, she had to admit the resemblance between Naruto and her brother Nawaki was uncanny. In fact, the only things different were the hair color and the whisker-like marks on the blonde's face. She watched for a few minutes as Naruto and his clones tried creating Rasengans, only for them to explode prematurely. After a few more minutes of watching, in which the boy cursed more times than she could count, she finally decided to make her presence known. She cleared her throat, and the only sign he heard her was him looking out the corner of his eye. What do you want? said Naruto, not looking at her. How do you feel about a little bet? said Tsunade, earning a raised eyebrow from the younger blonde. Later that week, Naruto awoke with a groan, surprised at being in a bed as he definitely remembered passing out in the clearing. A smirk quickly formed on his face though thinking about his last week of training. His training had definitely produced some results though he was far from finished. Looking over he saw Jiraiya snoring away in the bed next to him. He was broken from his thoughts when the door was slammed open and Shizune rushed in. Both Naruto and Jiraiya jumped to their feet with weapons drawn as soon as the door was flung open, surprising Shizune. She quickly shook it off however and informed the two that Tsunade had already left for the meeting with Orochimaru. Once she said that both she and Jiraiya shot out the window. Naruto however stopped for his sword before following. When they finally arrived Tsunade was already fighting against both Orochimaru and Kabuto. They watched as Kabuto slashed himself flinging the blood onto Tsunade who started shaking badly. Seeing them Kabuto jumped back towards Orochimaru before smearing some blood onto the snake Sannin summoning tattoo. There was poof of smoke which cleared showing two large snakes. Jiraiya however took quick care of the snakes making a few seals before placing his hands on the ground and mumbling Doten. Yomi Noma, Earth Release. Swamp of the underworld. The land under the snakes turned into a deep swamp sucking them in. Not wanting to waste too much chakra Jiraiya stopped the jutsu once they were halfway in. Shizune wasted no time rolling up her sleeve and firing poison needles at Kabuto from the launcher on her arm. The silver-haired Mednin jumped back dodging them, Jiraiya seeing this shot in at Orochimaru. Naruto however at Kyuubi's request stood and watched waiting to see if he'd be needed. Shizune charged at Kabuto with a chakra scalpel in her right hand. She quickly sent out a forward thrust which Kabuto dodged by sidestepping. Undeterred Tsunade's assistant kept up her assault, turning the thrust into a side slash which was ducked under. Kabuto who had formed his own chakra scalpel, used this time to sever one of the tendons in Shizune's leg. Shizune losing her balance fell to the ground. Kabuto merely smirked at her before moving around towards Tsunade taunting her the entire way. However before he could reach her he was forced to jump back once again, this time barely dodging a kunai that was on course with his head. When he looked up Naruto was already standing in front of both Tsunade and Shizune glaring daggers at him. Kabuto nearly took a step back seeing the icy depths that were Naruto's eyes, but managed to stop himself. "Naruto-kun, how nice to see you again," said Kabuto with a smirk. "Shut up and fight, traitor," was all the blonde said. Before Kabuto could speak the blonde rushed forward with two kunais in a backhanded grip. Kabuto chuckled seeing this thinking this would be easy. Naruto was in front of him in no time flipping the kunai in his right hand, he gave a side swipe which Kabuto avoided by stepping back. Kabuto came forward again with a chakra scalpel, but before he could swing, he was forced to dodge an uppercut swipe from the kunai in the blonde's left hand. Grabbing his own kunai he charged forward aiming to stab the boy. Naruto brought his own up blocking it but was forced to jump back when Kabuto swung with a chakra scalpel. Naruto who was now standing by Tsunade, spared her a quick glance before looking back at his opponent. It was then that Kabuto felt two different sets of hands grab him. Looking back he saw a clone of Naruto holding him on both sides. Naruto grinned seeing this before bringing both hands in front of him with only his fingertips touching. Blue chakra started gathering in the blonde's hands before forming into a compressed ball of swirling chakra. Once it was complete Naruto held it in his right hand and grinned at his captive before charging forward. Kabuto saw him coming and went wide-eyed while trying to break the hold the clones had on him. Before he could however the blonde appeared in front of the medic nin and slammed the ball of chakra into his stomach with a cry of Rasengan. The clones held their grip, letting the chakra sphere grind into the mednin before releasing him. Kabuto went flying along with the Rasengan which was still grinding against him. Finally he slammed into a large boulder and the Rasengan detonated causing an explosion. When the smoke cleared it showed Kabuto ledged into the boulder. After a moment however he pulled himself out. Before he could do anything else however he coughed up blood and fell face first to the ground. Tsunade was in shock seeing this. He had actually done it, he'd mastered the Rasengan within a week. It had taken Jiraiya months to get and Naruto had done it in a week. Looks like she lost another bet though, for some reason she didn't feel too bad about that. Both Jiraiya and Orochimaru, who had stopped their battle, were now looking in the boy's direction. While Jiraiya was smirking Orochimaru wasn't happy one bit. He needed to take that boy out before he became a problem. With that thought he dashed towards the blonde and after opening his mouth wide Kusanagi appeared. Jiraiya seeing this leapt after him only for the snake to dodge and then push off of him towards the blonde. The snake man was shocked however when the blonde spun and quickly drew his own sword blocking his thrust. His shock cost him however as he received a jaw-shattering punch to the jaw that sent him flying. Turning he saw Tsunade glaring at him leaking enough killing intent to have even Kyuubi taking a few steps back, even in her room. Orochimaru not wanting to die made a mad dash for Kabuto and disappeared once he reached him. It was just in time too as he had barely avoided Tsunade's most infamous attack the heel drop which left a huge crater in the ground. Turning around she found Naruto on one knee panting heavily. He smiled for a second before his eyes closed and he fell backwards passed out. Next day, Naruto awoke with a groan of pain. His body was sore all over though it was the ass kicking he got from Kyuubi last night that got him. Sadist actually calls beating me to death training, thought the blonde with a scowl which deepened hearing Kyuubi's laughing. How about I put you back in that cage, said Naruto, and was satisfied hearing the laughing stop. You wouldn't really do that to me, would you, asked Kyuubi, a horrified look on her face. Only if you don't tell me what I want to know soon, Kyuubi-hime, replied the blonde, making Kyuubi blush at the name. Before a response could be made, the door opened and Tsunade, Jiraiya and Shizune walked in. Before anyone could say anything, however, Naruto shot off towards the bathroom. Washing his face after he was done, he noticed a jade necklace dangling from his neck and smiled before walking back into the room. Well, now it seems someone's bloodline is awakening, said Tsunade, shocking the blonde genin. Get dressed, brat, we're leaving. I'll tell you everything when we get home, said Tsunade, getting a nod from the younger blonde. Once Naruto was done dressing, the group headed off, walking at a relaxed pace. They traveled for about a week, during which time Naruto got to know about both his aunt and Shizune. Naruto sighed seeing the gates up ahead and prepared himself for the glares that were sure to come. Chapter 8. Sasuke's defection. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto or Bleach, and first off, as always, I have to thank everyone who reviewed. Firstly, I'd like to say that the harem is being changed once again, only this time I'm taking from it. Both Totsuki and Ino are being taken out of it simply because I had already had plans for them that I liked and couldn't figure a way to add them in, Totsuki more so than Ino. So the harem is now set for Hinata, Kyuubi, Hinamori and Soifun. That's better as I don't have to strain to make things believable. Also, I didn't put the harem up for votes because you get limited like that. Even still, I was convinced to add to it because some people had better explanations than just she has big boobs. In case you haven't figured it out yet, I won't be convinced by something like that. Also, I already have plans for certain characters and don't want the troublesome task of changing anything. So yay, the harem's set and I ain't changing it for nothing, now it's too late. Next, a few people brought up the shuriken kunai bunshin thing. Well, I took the troublesome task of checking and I found Cage Shuriken, the one with the hidden shuriken in the shadow of the first. It had two different names. I remembered it was used as Fuma Shuriken. Cage Fusha, Wind Demon Shuriken. Shadow Windmill, which is what was used in the anime. The manga may have just used Cage Shuriken, but I'm not sure since I only saw the anime of the Wave arc and never the manga. In fact, I didn't start reading the manga until Kakashi Gaiden, so I may have missed a lot before then. If so, let me know, give proof meaning an example, and I'll fix it. That way we can avoid these troublesome situations. As far as Naruto's bloodline is concerned, it will be explained in this chapter. Hopefully it makes as much sense outside my head as it does inside. If not, let me know what sounds stupid so I can fix it. Also, some people asked why some people could see Naruto while in his Shinigami form. As I said, chakra is made from both physical and spiritual energy. It's only natural that during battle those with high chakra levels could see him. Those with low ones, let's just say they've been exposed to high level Ryatsu. Don't ask, you'll find out later. Lastly, everyone who hasn't should check out my other fic, The Spirit Fox. Well, with that said, here's what you guys and girls came for. Start, now. Naruto sighed, staring at the gate ahead of him. He really didn't want to go back there right now. He was just getting used to not being glared at wherever he went to. The group stopped when the blonde fell behind and looked back, finding him glaring at the gates with icy blue eyes. Hey Gaki, called Jiraiya, catching the boy's attention. If you hurry up I can teach you Shunshin no Jutsu. Well, the sun's still up, finished the toad hermit. Naruto simply nodded before he resumed his walk. Once he caught up with the rest, they too continued toward the gate. Tsunade's eyes narrowed at the state of her nephew. There would definitely be hell to pay for what this village had done to him. It didn't take long for them to reach the gates. They were let in without any trouble, in fact neither of the guards glared at Naruto. Not wanting to look a gift horse in the mouth, Naruto swiftly walked through the gates. Once inside, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Shizune headed out towards the tower. Naruto, however, had other plans and headed towards his apartment. It didn't take him long to reach the complex. However, instead of going up to his apartment, he stopped on the second floor. Reaching room 209 of the mostly abandoned complex, he quickly entered. The room was filled with nothing but weapons, everything from kunai to swords. The room's back wall had a huge hole in it out to give it more room, as did the other two walls. Now where is she, he said to himself quietly. After looking around a bit, he decided to check the back. Walking up and looking through the hole, he smirked, seeing his guess was correct. There, rummaging through boxes, was none other than Konoha's weapon mistress. Her brown hair hanging down her back in a ponytail instead of the buns it was usually in. It's about time you got back, said Tenten without turning her head. How do you know it was me, asked the blonde, leaning against the wall. Because Hinata-chan was already here. Plus, aside from me and her, you're the only person who knows about this place. Explained Tenten like it was obvious. So I'm guessing you need to restock, said the weapon specialist. What makes you think I didn't come just to see you, said Naruto. The fact that you just came back from a mission, said Tenten. Fine, I did come to restock. Though just for the record I did want to see you, said the blonde. So how was your mission, said Tenten, still going through boxes. A success, though we did have some trouble, confessed the blonde, causing Tenten to turn her head. Orochimaru showed up, said the blonde simply. Tenten froze at the name and her eyes narrowed. Her head slowly turned to Naruto, who backed away, seeing the look in her eyes. Knowing an angry Tenten was a dangerous Tenten, he hastily explained the encounter. By the end of the explanation he was behind the wall, peeking around the corner. He did however leave out a few details, such as Tsunade being in the village. Once he finished, Tenten closed her eyes, took a deep breath and let it out. She was extremely happy she had taught the boy how to wield a sword when they were younger. Opening her eyes she saw the boy hiding behind the wall and had to stifle a giggle. Naruto, seeing this, came out of hiding and sat down next to her. So I'm not gonna die, said Naruto nervously. No, you're not gonna die, Baka, said Tenten with a small smile before hugging him to her. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief at that one and rested his head on her shoulder. Tenten ran her fingers through his hair, noticing it had gotten longer. In fact, it just about reached his shoulders. "Come on, Itoto, let's go fix that hair of yours," said Tenten, standing to her feet. Naruto did likewise and grabbing the pouch she had filled for him. Once done, both headed out of their personal armory and headed towards her apartment. This coincidentally was right next to his. Council chambers. Tsunade glared at the people in the room. With the exception of only a few, all of these people were on her shit list. Those few being Nara Shikaku, Akimichi Chauza, Aburam Shibi, Inyazuka Tsume, Yamanaka Inoichi and surprisingly Hyuga Hiashi. According to Sarutobi's notes, these were the people keeping Naruto alive. The rest of the council consisted of civilians, Sarutobi's former teammates, and that bastard Danzo. The last one was the one she was having problems with. Apparently word of Naruto's feats during the Chunin exam finals, specifically Shikaku's defeat, had spread through the ranks. Well, this wasn't a problem. What was Danzo trying to draft her nephew into root. "I don't see what the problem is with this Tsunade," said Danzo. "The problem is you trying to turn him into a weapon," snarled Tsunade. "That's what he is," said Danzo angrily. "That boy is a monster. His only purpose, Tsunade, is to be a weapon. Why you and that fool Sarutobi don't see this, I'll never understand." By the end of his little rant, Tsunade had had enough and had crossed the distance between them in a flash. Grabbing the man by his collar, she hoisted him up so she could look into the man's eyes. "I'll say this only one more time, the answer is no. And if you ever disrespect him or my sensei again in front of me or not, I'll kill you," said Tsunade coldly before throwing him back into his seat. Tsunade called Himura, catching the attention of the entire group. "What is so special about that boy that you would threaten an elder in the presence of the council?" he finished. Tsunade inwardly smirked at that she could wait to see their faces. Though this goes against all clan regulations, she didn't care as she and Naruto were the only two left. "Firstly, Himura, you should remember this council means nothing to me. I could dismember it just as swiftly as my uncle created it," said Tsunade, her eyes cold. "Secondly, that boy, as you put it, means more to Konoha than all of you," she said, shocking everyone. "He is the great-grandson of the Nidaime Hokage, and my nephew finished the Slug Sannin." This left everyone shocked, even the normally stoic Aburam and Hyuga had it showing. Hiashi by the widening of his eyes and Shibi by his raised eyebrows. Himura and Kaharu, however, looked like they'd been slammed in the chest with a Rasengan. Both had their jaws dropped and eyes wide in disbelief. "Oh, so you get it now," mocked Tsunade. "If you'd ever bothered to think, you would have figured something out. Why Naruto was chosen to hold Kyuubi and why Sensei protected him so much. Or how about why he wants to become Kage of a village full of ingrates," said Tsunade. I don't understand," said Kaharu. "If Sensei had had a family, why weren't we told?" "Because it's against the rules," said Tsunade, simply catching everyone's attention. "The only one who's supposed to know is the Hokage. Which is why Sarutobi Sensei knew finished the Slug Sannin." "Then why tell us now, Tsunade Haim," said Hiashi. "Because the clan is already dead, the rules no longer apply," said Tsunade tiredly. Tsurete, Yamamoto Genryusai, captain of the 1st Division and commander general of the Gate 13, was a man of little fear. There were a few things he did fear, one of which was paperwork. He had just gotten back to his office to find the desk covered in stacks of paper. His grip on his staff tightened. Seeing that, however, he smirked and called in his lieutenant. It didn't take long for the man to enter, and Yamamoto's smirk widened. "You called for me, Taicho," said the Fukatecho, lieutenant of the Gate 13's 1st Division. "Hi Chijiro, I have an extremely important mission for you," said Yamamoto, trying hard not to laugh. Hearing silence from behind him, he continued. "I need you to take and fill out all of these forms," said Yamamoto. "Hi Taicho," said Chijiro. Yamamoto smirked once he was gone. He couldn't wait until someone replaced that guy. He was a weakling and a suck-up. Sitting in his seat, he reached into his robe before pulling out a small orange book. Flipping it open to the first page, he lost himself into his book. If anyone from Tsurete walked in, they'd only see him reading, a common thing for him. They would completely overlook the book's title, Ichi Ichi Paradise Bowl. 1. Konoha Hospital. Naruto leaned against the wall, eyes closed as Tsunade worked on Sasuke. He had completely ignored Sakura's presence, not that she noticed his either. After a few more minutes however he walked out of the room down to Lee's. On his way there he ran into both Tenten and Niji. His eyes twinkled mischievously seeing them together, but he quickly smothered his impulse and calmly walked beside them. Tenten for her part acted her part flawlessly making it seem like they were merely acquaintances. When they entered the room they found that Guy was also there and looked like he'd been there for a while. Lee was also awake when they walked in and strapped down to the bed. Naruto snickered at this. Everyone looked his way when he did, and he explained. They used to strap me down too. Otherwise they couldn't get me to stay in that bed even with broken bones, said Naruto, causing Lee to smile slightly. Your flames of youth burn brightly Naruto-kun said Lee. Hopefully you won't have to endure this unyouthful torture again finished the genin. Yay, but don't worry you'll be good as new in no time, said Naruto confidently. How do you know that said Niji. I brought the best to fix him up said Naruto. Ai's face brightened upon hearing this as he had known where Naruto went with Jiraiya. Niji saw this and just had to ask. And just who did you bring? Me came Tsunade's voice as she entered the room. Tenten's eyes went wide seeing the woman she considered her hero. Then they quickly narrowed in anger as she rounded on Naruto who gave a startled meep very much like a certain Hyuga and took a few steps back. Tenten seeing this took a few steps forward. This continued until Naruto's back was on the wall. You brought Tsunade-sama back said Tenten slowly getting a hesitant nod from the blonde. And you didn't tell me this earlier why said Tenten dangerously. You didn't ask said Naruto looking anywhere but at her. Tenten took a deep breath before turning her back on the boy, causing him to breathe a sigh of relief. And Kami he said quietly. Kami's got nothing to do with it, said Tenten turning her head towards him. I just decided to torture you later at Todo said Tenten causing Naruto to shudder. Sorry Lee gotta go said Naruto before he bolted and jumped out the open window dashing across the rooftops. It was only when she turned around did Tenten realize she slipped up. Everyone had their eyes on her disbelief clearly seen. Did she just say started Niji? The Todo finished Lee. Tenten mentally slapped herself for her slip up before looking towards Tsunade for help. Elsewhere, Jiraiya giggled quietly from his perch in the bushes. His invisibility technique active and telescope in his hand he looked at the bathhouse before him. Occupying said area were two of Konoha's most delectable, dangerous, and elusive jounin. The Genjutsu mistress Yuhi Kurane and her best friend Mitarashi Anko, both of which clad in nothing but towels. If that wasn't enough right there the most beautiful women in the Anbu, Yuzuki Yugao, had just joined them. Jiraiya took that moment to silently thank Kami for allowing him to see the sight. Once he did a perverted giggle escaped him as he quickly pulled out his notepad. Hospital. Sakura sat staring at the Uchiha before her worriedly. Tsunade had come in and healed, then left saying he'd be fine and only had to rest. She had tried feeding him only for him to slap her hand away and glare at her. Sasuke himself was staring blankly ahead of him lost in thought. His encounter with Itachi had done nothing but darken his spirit, he couldn't believe there was still such a gap between them. What was worse that when Itachi showed up it wasn't for him but for Naruto of all people. He hadn't even paid him any mind at all. His hands clenched to fist at that thought as he continued to lose himself in his thoughts. If either Sasuke or Sakura had been paying any attention they would have both noticed his cursed seal pulsing. Next day, Hokage Monument, Naruto sat on top of Sarutobi's head looking out over the village. When he had first come this morning he had frowned seeing the large crack running over the face of the sculpture. Unlike most times he came up here however this time he wasn't alone. As a small one-tailed kid could be seen lying on his lap as he ran his hand through her fur. Iwubi purred as the blonde continued to absent-mindedly stroke her fur. She loved it when he did this though she wouldn't tell him that. She shuddered as he hit a particular spot that made her weak in the knees in any form. Snuggling up to him she closed her eyes drifting off to a peaceful sleep. Her last thoughts were on the inevitable meeting between her and her father and the effect it would have on him. Hyuga Estate. The Ashi was still in shock over the meeting that occurred less than 24 hours ago. He'd never really had anything against a boy except thinking he was a bit immature. So it was no surprise, to him at least, that he never busted up his secret friendship with his eldest daughter. While no one else knew of their friendship he had known for years. His mastery over the Byakugan had allowed him to see it. He had also seen through Hinata's mask which was why he was so hard on her. He knew Hinata was stronger than she appeared and while she couldn't beat Niji, there was no way Hanabi could beat her if she was serious. The reason he allowed this to continue however was simple, he had discovered her plans. The plans that Hinata, Naruto, and Tenten had come up with not only for her to become Hyuga head and Naruto Hokage. But the plans to revolutionize all of Konoha starting with the removal of the branch house's caged bird seal, something he hadn't been able to accomplish. He still remembered when he had found out about it. Flashback, Hinata had been late coming from the academy and he had activated his Byakugan to find her. He had developed his Byakugan to the point where his range extended the entire village. He had found her at the apartment complex in a room filled with weapons. With her were the 8-year-old Tenten and 7-year-old Naruto. Though he wasn't able to hear, he was still able to lip read. So he was surprised at the conversation they were having. He was especially surprised to find Hinata not stuttering or shying away. In the end, he was surprised at the slyness of the three, especially of his daughter, that she had even fooled him. After observing the conversation, he decided that he would help out by keeping suspicion away from Hinata. Flashback end. After that, he would continue to watch them as they met, though never as they trained. He could only tell Hinata held back because of the small, almost unnoticeable twitches she made whenever she and Hanabi sparred. He smirked to himself as he walked off. He couldn't wait to see the looks the elders had when things came to pass. Hokage Tower. Tsunade stared at the faces of the former Hokages from the window in the office. She had her inauguration ceremony today, but that didn't bother her. Looking over the faces of first her grandfather, then her uncle, to her sensei and father figure, she finally came to the gaze of her cousin. She was broken from her musing when there was a knock at the door. "What is it?" she asked. "Tsunade-sama, Naruto-kun is here," said Shizune. "Send him in," said Tsunade. Not a minute after she said that, the blonde walked in. Neither said anything, simply staring at the monument. After a few moments, Tsunade spoke, breaking the silence. "What do you want to know about first, the clan or bloodline?" "The clan," Naruto answered quickly. "Alright, as you are aware, the Senju are extremely secretive," said Tsunade, getting a nod from the blonde. "The clan originates from Kusa no Kuni, grass country. Kusa, which was once one of the major villages, was nearly destroyed in the First Great Shinobi War, and the clan along with it. This was caused by a poison that had spread throughout the village. Those who survived split up, going different ways. Shadame and Nidame among others came here and created Konoha. The other half left, heading towards Mizu no Kuni, water country. Most of those that came here died out during the Second and Third Great Shinobi Wars. The rest, however, died in the Kyuubi attack, which is why we are the last," explained Tsunade. She had noticed the kid around his neck stiffen at the mention of the Kyuubi attack, but paid it no mind. "Our bloodline is unique," said Tsunade, catching the blonde's interest. "Our bloodline allows us control over water. This, of course, is what Nidame is famous for," said Tsunade, getting a nod from the blonde. "Of course, that's not all. Our bloodline naturally merges compatible chakra alignments. For my grandfather, it created the Mokuton element. Well, people usually had compatible alignments, unlike myself didn't, mine being water and fire. As you know, the two cancel each other out," she explained, getting another nod. "I have no idea what your father's alignment was, though I know for a fact Nawaki would have gotten Mokuton," said Tsunade. "How so?" asked Naruto. "As I said, our bloodline naturally merges two compatible chakra natures. Nawaki had a Doton chakra nature. That combined with water, if his bloodline had awakened, would result in Mokuton," explained the slug Sanin. "So if someone had, say, wind as their natural element?" asked Naruto. "Is that your element?" asked Tsunade, getting a nod from the blonde. Seeing this, she pulled out a piece of paper and handed it to him. Knowing what it was, he focused chakra into it and was surprised. First, it split into 3 pieces before one split in half, one soaked through and the other froze. "I knew it," said Tsunade quietly. "Knew what?" said Naruto. "There was once a small clan of people in Kiri that were able to use ice. I had suspected them to be of Senju blood, but I wasn't sure," explained Tsunade. Naruto thought with a pang of sadness. "Anyway," said Tsunade, catching his attention. "I'm moving you and your sister out of that apartment," she finished, getting a raised eyebrow. "You'll be moving in with me and Shizune at the Hokage mansion." After about 20 more minutes they finished and Naruto left the room. On his way out, he stopped and looked towards his side before shaking his head and leaving. Toshiro and Hinamori, who were in their Shinigami forms, had seen this. "Why didn't he see us?" asked Hinamori. "Could you feel his Riatsu?" asked Toshiro, knowingly, getting a shake of the head from the girl. "He's developed a way to contain his Riatsu, which he always does unless in battle. As it is, he has so little flowing through him he can't see us, but we also can't track him," explained the captain. "I see, smart move," said Hinamori. "Yes, with his level of Riatsu and lack of training, he'd be nothing more than hollow bait if he didn't contain his Riatsu," said Toshiro. 3 weeks later, Naruto could be found in the training grounds of the Hokage mansion, where he spent most of his time. Tenten had been ecstatic when she had first gotten the invitation to move in from Tsunade and had hastily agreed. In that time, Naruto had also noticed majority of the shinobi had stopped glaring at him and wondered why, though he appreciated it. Like most boys with a new toy, he spent most of his time tinkering with it. As such, he was always found training his bloodline, along with a few thousand clones. He had read that Nidame had gotten to the point where he could draw water from the molecules in the air. He set himself to be able to do that as well. He had noticed that it took virtually no time for him to master Suiton techniques. In fact, he had already mastered Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu, Kurigakur no Jutsu, Suiton, Teppadama, water release, gunshot, and Suiton, Sujinheki, water release, water encampment wall. He had even gotten to the point where he didn't have to use all the seals to use the jutsus, meaning they couldn't be copied. At least that's what Tsunade had told him. While most wouldn't be able to improve so fast with the help of Kage Bunshin, Naruto knew he was now equal with Sasuke in terms of ninjutsu. He had also found out he didn't get the promotion to Chunin, though he wasn't worried since he now had his apprenticeship. In fact, the only one promoted had been Shikamaru, who had merely stated it was troublesome. Even still, during all this time he kept feeling as if he was being watched, but shrugged it off as paranoia. He was currently doing another chakra control exercise, water rolling. Jiraiya had stated that he was still wasting far too much chakra in his attacks. He was also still working on perfecting the Rasengan, though that was proving to be a little difficult as Jiraiya would not allow the usage of clones for that. After watching the boy fall in a few more times, Jiraiya called him over. Boygaki called Jiraiya, waving the boy over. Once he continued. The senseis have asked me to bring you over for a group spar. Interested? Asked the pervert. Are you a super pervert? Replied Naruto with a grin. But that Naruto dried off before dressing. Once he was dressed once more, they both ran through a few seals and disappeared in twin puffs of smoke. Training Ground 9. The rookies and Team Guy had gathered at Training Ground 9 for a little sparring at Kurene's suggestion. Guy had picked this training ground as it had a lake, just in case Sasuke missed one of his fire jutsus. They were all gathered with the exception of Shino, Naruto and Jiraiya when the latter two people appeared in twin puffs of smoke. The Jounins raised eyebrows seeing Naruto do the Chunin level skill, while Sasuke's eyes narrowed. Lee and Hinata weren't participating, Lee because he couldn't and Hinata because she didn't want him to feel left out. Shikamaru also wasn't participating, saying it was too troublesome, and Shino was gone on a diplomatic mission with his father. The matches had gone by rather quickly. Ino had given up after drawing Niji, and Sakura had been put down in one move by Kiba. Tenten and Choji's match had been rather entertaining, though it ended with him being surrounded by weapons and surrendering. Tension immediately entered the group knowing the next match was Naruto versus Sasuke. Once they were on the field, neither spoke for a few moments. Then out of nowhere Naruto chuckled, catching the attention of the black-haired boy. But so funny, dope, said Sasuke. Nothing's funny, team, replied Naruto. Just thinking about how easy it's going to be to beat you, he finished. Sasuke, who had wanted to fight him since he woke up, growled hearing this. Then without warning he shot forward. Naruto, seeing this, charged as well, meeting him in the middle. Both struck out with right hooks which were both caught in the other's left hand. They struggled for a second before they broke apart. Jumping forward, the Uchiha rushed at the Uzumaki again, throwing a flurry of punches which were all dodged. Sasuke jabbed with his left and Naruto, instead of dodging, caught it before pulling him forward. Before Sasuke could react, he had been punched in the chest and sent skidding back a bit. Sasuke, whose head was down, looked up, showing the blood-red eyes of the Sharingan, 2 commas in each eye. So you want to get serious, huh, said Naruto. Sasuke didn't answer and quickly ran through seals, launching a few fireballs at the blonde. Naruto jumped to the side, avoiding the fireballs. Landing on his feet, he looked up just in time to catch a kick to the face before puffing into smoke. Shit bunchin', thought Sasuke. He turned just in time to see a ball of water flying at him and dodged out of the way. He was caught by surprise, however, when dozens of Naruto emerged from the water. Focusing chakra to his legs, he leapt into the air while running through seals. Taking a deep breath, he exhaled a huge fireball while thinking Kaiten. Kakakyu no Jutsu. The ball of fire streaked towards the Narutos before engulfing them, creating a large cloud of smoke. The smoke was blown apart, however, by a water ball shooting out of it. Sasuke, seeing this and knowing he couldn't dodge, quickly made the needed seals before calling out Chidori and plunging through the water ball and towards the blonde. Naruto, seeing this, brought his hands up in front of him, the ball of chakra quickly forming. Then focusing chakra to his legs, he leapt at the boy with the cry of Rasengan. Sakura, no longer able to watch anymore, dashed over trying to stop them. Both saw her, though only Naruto made an effort to not hit her. Before either of them made contact, however, they were quickly snatched out of the air and thrown towards the trees. While Sasuke's arm sunk deep into it, Naruto's palm rested on the trunk when he moved, showing a small hole. Sasuke smirked seeing this before walking off. As he did, however, he froze seeing the damage behind the tree done by the jutsu. The back of the tree was torn to shreds, as were several bushes, while other trees had pieces missing. He gritted his teeth in anger before stalking off once more. Everyone else was looking on at Naruto, who was glaring at Kakashi. Kakashi had given the excuse that Sasuke had used Chidori to get through the water ball, since he had no other option. Listen, Haddock, said Naruto, anger dripping from his voice. If that was the case, he would have ended the jutsu after he got past the water ball, said Naruto, making the other Jounins and Jiraiya agree. But I'll tell you what, said the blonde, catching everyone's attention. If he ever aims that thing at me again, the gloves will come off. Now how's that sound for an option, finished the blonde coldly before he grabbed his things and disappeared in a puff of smoke. At night, Sasuke gazed up, looking at the stars, deep in thought. As far as he was concerned, this place was holding him back. First, not giving him any missions, then the dope being trained by a Sannin. Well, he isn't the only one with a Sannin interested in him, thought the Uchiha, touching the mark on his neck. Just as he thought that, 4 figures dropped down in front of him. Sasuke smirked seeing the symbols on their hitates. So he sent escorts for me, huh, said Sasuke. But Sakura, the pink-haired Kunoichi, was walking towards her house from Ino's. As she was walking however she saw a familiar figure down the road. Sasuke-kun called out Sakura causing him to turn. After a bit of talking with Sakura trying to convince to stay or at least let her go with him, Sasuke had enough. Appearing behind her he quickly knocked her out, the last thing she heard before darkness claimed her was a soft thank you. She was awoken by two Chunin who were passing by the next morning. Once she remembered what happened she immediately rushed to Tsunade's office. Later Hokage Mansion. Naruto awoke with a groan before stretching himself out. After a few quick seals he muttered out Kuchius no Jutsu. There was a puff of smoke and Kyuubi appeared in her human form in the bed next to him. She was still asleep he noticed, so he did what he always did at times like these, watched her. He took a moment to look over her body especially her legs, which he could see because of the shorts. He watched the rise and fall of her chest as she breathed and smiled softly. You know if I didn't know any better I'd think you'd fallen for her came Tenten's voice from the door. Naruto snorted at that before getting up himself. Yeah right, will never happen said the blonde. Then why do you let her out asked Tenten with narrowed eyes. Just fulfilling my part of the deal said the blonde. I think you actually are falling for her said Tenten. Yeah right love is a farce said Naruto going through his drawers. It's too early for this argument said Tenten. The doorbell ringing interrupted them as they went to check. Opening the door they found it was none other than Shikamaru. What's up Shika said Naruto. Sasuke ran away last night. We need to get him back said Shikamaru. I'll pass said Naruto turning back into the house. Naruto called Shikamaru. No. I'm not going after that damn Uchiha get someone who cares to do it said Naruto. Tsunade-sama said you'd say that said Shikamaru. So you still came here because? Asked Naruto. Shikamaru said nothing and merely gave him a slip of paper. Once he read it his eyes narrowed before he balled it up. Damn that old woman snarled the blonde before he went to get dressed. Tenten seeing this picked the note up and chuckled after reading it. Shikamaru raised an eyebrow at this before he saw the note and read it. Food or no ramen for a month was all it said. Once Naruto came down fully dressed except missing his coat they left, though Tenten quickly took his sword so he wouldn't be tempted to use it on the Uchiha. It didn't take long for them to get Choji, Kiba and Neji to agree to going either. Once they reached the gates they checked their supplies before turning to leave. They were stopped however hearing a voice calling for them to wait. Turning around they saw Sakura come up with tears in her eyes. Naruto please bring Sasuke-kun back. I tried to stop him but I could please said Sakura. Naruto said nothing for a long moment then spoke. No. I could care less about your precious Uchiha or you for that matter. Though he'll come back if he's in a box or not depends on him said the blonde before turning away. Nodding to the others each of them took to the trees dashing after their target. What if Naruto heritage revealed in Bleach harem? Thanks for watching my video till the end if you enjoy this content then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.